Okay. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. 1 week left after today. That's it. It goes fast. It really does. Yeah, really does. I know. All right, so let me go ahead and get your scores for Chapter 7. I know everybody's a little slow filtering in today, it looks like.
The school buses. You
Yes.
totally forget about having to.
Back to school. Yep. I know.
Going out of my neighborhood.
Thank
Oh
you.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Delilah. Jenny. Okay, Jenny, do you have 4, 5, and 6 for me?
4, I got 100. 5, I got 95. And then 6, I got 80.
Thank you. Isaac? That's fine. Fermana?
90.
Thank you. Kaylee? Diana? Andrea?
90.
Sarah? Daisy? Teresa? Christian? Faith? All right. Does anybody have any questions on what you went over? Questions? The ones that you missed, did you understand why the right answer is the right answer? Okay. Can-
I did the same thing. I missed it also.
Okay.
I put give a back rub, not to keep the patient perfectly still at all times.
Okay, so let me get a book so I can go through these one at a time. This is what we call a theory question. It's actually a good segue into what I wanted to talk about today. Okay, theory questions. Theory questions are based on what you've read in the chapter or conversations we've had in the class. Okay, so think of theory as what you know. Most of the test questions are going to be to apply what we know to a scenario. So action, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? That type of thing. Theory questions are going to be presented a little bit differently. It's asking, what do you know? Like this one, okay? Which of the following is not a measure to reduce pain? So it's asking, what do we know? So let's take each one individually, okay? Does keeping the patient perfectly still at all times reduce pain? Can you realistically keep a patient perfectly still at all times?
No, not
Yeah.
that
Right.
makes sense.
So we have to look at each word here, right? Perfectly still means that we are keeping them from moving at all. At all. Not moving their hands, their arms, not turning their head, not, moving their legs. It perfectly still is basically impossible. If I asked you guys to freeze in place right now and stay perfectly still for the next 5 minutes, none of you could accomplish that. You're trying real hard. None of you could accomplish that. It is physiologically impossible. And let's go back to last class to figure out why. Remember that gravity is pulling down on your body, and those bones are compressing all the tissue under the bones, and that closes off your capillaries. Your body knows, hey, these areas aren't getting blood. So your brain tells your body, move, change position, stretch, turn, lean. Your body will always move in some way to help prevent that compression, that vascular compression. Does that make sense? So it is impossible for a CNA to get a patient to stay perfectly still by just telling them, stay perfectly still. Now, the other part of that answer, at all times. That is not only physiologically impossible, it's also psychologically improbable. Okay.
Yeah, but it says, all these questions with the not gets me.
Right. And that's why we want to look at each answer. Well, and that's exactly how we're going to learn how to do this. We're going to look at each answer individually. So take the not out of the question for a second. Okay. Take the not away. Let's look at just this one answer. Does keeping a patient perfectly still at all times relieve pain? No, because it's physiologically impossible to do so. So that question or that answer cannot be the right answer. Okay.
It says keep it.
Keep the patient perfectly still at all times.
Is supposed to be the right answer.
All right. I'm sorry. It's early. Okay. You're right. So because it's physiologically impossible, it is not going to be used.
Right.
My answer is right. I'm just phrasing it wrong. Keeping a patient perfectly still is physiologically impossible. Therefore, it's not used to relieve pain. Okay. Does that make sense? Does that help you?
Yeah, but there's not always getting me.
Okay. Let's look at number 2 or B there. Okay. Report complaints of pain promptly to the nurse. Is this something we're supposed to do?
Yes.
Okay, we report all abnormalities. So we know it's something we're supposed to do. If we report complaints of pain to a nurse promptly, would that assist the patient in getting out of pain? So we know that that is a measure to relieve pain. So that's good. Let's look at C. Provide back rubs. Now, I actually said this in class last class, but I said it very briefly. Do you remember when you were young and you didn't feel well? A mom came along and just rubbed your back real quick and it always made you feel a little bit better? That is a back rub, guys. In our society, we tend to think back rubs are deep tissue, hot stone, an hour on a table, nice music in the background, scented oils, right? That's what we think of with back rubs. Those aren't back rubs, those are massages. This does not say massage. What does it say? Back rub. A back rub is just a simple an arm rub, a head rub, right? It's just a simple human contact in a caring manner. Now, it does help open up those capillaries. It helps restore blood flow to the area because we're stimulating that skin, right, that the bones have compressed. So it does help with pain, but it also helps psychologically with pain management. It's just caring human contact, and who doesn't like that? Okay, good. It's the equivalent for you ladies, it's the equivalent of a forehead kiss. Okay, men don't get that. It's the equivalent of a forehead kiss. It's caring human contact. Make sense? So back rubs, yes, they can. And here's something that a lot of people don't know that I find really fascinating. Before, I would say the 2000s, maybe even a little earlier than that, back rubs were one of the main things that CNAs did. That was one of the main things that CNAs did, is just, a light back rub. CNAs have, just like nurses have moved from bedside nursing to charting everything, right? And they're hardly ever at the bedside, right? So the whole nursing industry has changed in the last 25, 30 years. Well, the CNA industry has moved up to take care of a lot of those nursing things that the nurses are not doing. So that's why we're helping patients with toileting and bathing and grooming. Normally the nurse would do that. Before that, CNAs were more along the lines of helping the patient just simply feel better. We gave back rubs. We made sure that they had plenty to eat. We did things to help occupy their mind, to help distract them. We engaged them in activities. We took them on walks. We were the feel-good part of healthcare. And we've lost a lot of that. And our patients feel that. Because when you're sick, you want to get better, but what you really want is somebody to pay attention to the fact that you don't feel good. We want that attention. We want that sense of well-being, that somebody rooting for us. We need that. And this is why we complain when we're sick. Right? And this is exactly why you complain when you're sick. Think about being sick. You probably tell your significant other or your mom or whoever is in your house, man, I don't feel good. You announce it. You don't keep it to yourself. You want everybody to know, I'm not feeling good today. I got a headache. Right? You tell everybody. Why? Why do you do that? What's that? Okay, sure. We might be thinking about them. Yeah, we're looking for sympathy. We're looking for that. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're looking for that. We want somebody to recognize that we are struggling today because their words can actually help us feel a little bit better. Make sense? Now, if it's something that we do you think it might be something that our patients are going to do too? Don't feel good today. They're looking for some sort of verbal or even physical recognition that they're not feeling good today. And a back rub can certainly do that. Just a quick rub on the back. I hope you feel better. That goes a long way. We used to call it the placebo effect. And it works. It works. Not always. I mean, if my leg is amputated, a back rub is not going to go very far, right? It's not as good as morphine, but it can help, especially with, small things. Good? Make sense? Okay, we'll get to that. Let's talk about providing a calm, quiet environment. This is probably the most overlooked answer on here, and it's one of the most important. Because when somebody is sick, their nervous system is already overstimulated, and you add a lot of external stimulation to that, and it can really affect your patient. Now, that will ultimately affect their healing because their nervous system is not paying attention to the illness now, it's paying attention to the environment. And especially, this is why when we go into a hospital, it is the worst place to try to get rest. Because people are coming in and out. People are walking up and down the hallway. People are yelling at each other across the hall. It's a very noisy, very overstimulated environment, and people don't rest well. Well, if you're not resting well, you are not going to heal well. We're trying to get people out of the hospital as quickly as possible because of that. We want you home. Home is the best place for you. It's where you want to be, but it's also the best place for you. It reduces your exposure to pathogens. It is an environment you're familiar with. It is less stimulating. These are all really good things for your overall healing. Make sense? But we, as healthcare professionals, have an obligation to understand that calm, quiet environments contribute to healing, and our responsibility is to try to promote a calm, quiet environment wherever possible. Make sense? So if you are the type of personality that is like hopping all over the place and super hyper and loud, and that's your personality, acute care is probably not your place. I would recommend working with children. Pediatrics, absolutely. right? You have to match your personality to the workplace. Because if you take a personality that isn't suited for the workplace, not only is it going to affect your patients, it'll also affect you. You won't like where you're working, right? So we got to match that up. I actually have a tool for you to use to find your ideal workplace. And I'll talk to you about that a little bit later today. Okay, good, good. All right, so 9 and 10, you said? Oh, 12 and 13, okay. All right, let's talk about restraints and restraint alternatives. A restraint is anything that limits a person's ability to move freely. So could a gait belt be a restraint if I use it to tie a patient to a chair? Okay, it limits their ability to move freely. Is a gait belt a restraint if I put it around their waist and help them walk with it? No, because I'm using it as it's intended. Okay, anything can be a restraint, anything. You can use a bed sheet to tie somebody to a wheelchair, and that is a restraint. A sheet on a bed, not a restraint. It's not the item, it's how we're using it. Make sense? There was a horrible situation. Patient kept getting, a dementia patient kept getting up out of a wheelchair, and the staff would tell her, stay in your wheelchair, stay in your wheelchair, stay in your wheelchair. And she was a fall risk. Certainly, she was a fall risk. So they tied her to the wheelchair and she wiggled underneath it. It caught her under her chin and she ended up dying. Yeah. So did we really help this patient? No, not at all. Help the staff. You think they feel better about that? So we have to be careful here, right? A restraint is anything that is used to restrict the freedom of movement of somebody. We are not allowed to restrain people. Just like I can't whip out a pair of handcuffs and handcuff somebody in this room because I feel like it. We can't do that to patients either with any sort of a restraint. Now, what is a restraint alternative? Okay, so we've got this patient who's getting up out of the chair and she's a fall risk. She's got dementia. She's not able to assess dangerous situations. We want to keep her safe, but we can't use a restraint. So what do? Well, what if we used an alarm that every time she stood up from the chair, it would alarm and let a staff member know that, hey, she's up. Cool. Now somebody can go check on her and help her. Maybe walk her around the nurse's station 3 or 4 times to tire her out and then sit her back down, right? That chair alarm is now a restraint alternative. We're keeping our patients safe, but we're not doing it with restraints. So there are bed alarms that let us know when somebody gets up out of bed. There are chair alarms that tell us when somebody is out of the chair. They're pressure alarms is what they are. When somebody's sitting on them or laying on them, it turns the alarm off. When that pressure is removed, it lets us know, hey, there's no pressure here. Somebody should check on this, please. Right? We also can have door alarms where if a door is opened, it alarms and lets us know somebody's on the move. Right? So instead of tying a patient to a wheelchair, we can let them roam freely, but restrict their access to the outside. That is a restraint alternative. It allows our patient to move freely, right? But safely. Make sense? So there's lots of different kinds of restraint alternatives. What were the other two, 19 and 20? Okay. Vital signs. Vital signs are pulse, respirations, temperature, blood pressure, and in some cases, pain. These are vital signs. These are things that we're all pretty familiar with. We know how to take them now. We know how to do pulse. We know how to take respirations. We know how to take a blood pressure. Your book talked to you about temperature. We know all this, right? But taking vital signs is one thing. We need to know what to report. Are we going to report every vital sign to our nurse when we take it? No, that would be a huge waste of time. So which vital signs do we need to report? abnormals, which means if we're going to report abnormals, we need to know normal, right? So what are normal vital signs? So a normal pulse is between 60 and 100. Anything under 60, we have to report. Anything over 100, we have to report. Normal respirations between 12 and 20. Anything under 12, we have to. Anything over 20, we have to report. Normal temperature is a range between 97.6 and 99.6. Anything outside of that range, we have to report. Blood pressure, normal for our top number or systolic is between 100 and 119. Normal for the bottom or diastolic is between 60 and 79. If either number is outside of those ranges, what do we have to do? Report. The further outside the range it is, the faster you should walk. Okay? If I've got a blood pressure of 122 over 68, that's out of range. I have to report it. But that's not an emergency, run down the hall, get the nurse. If I have a blood pressure that's 212 over 168, I should be moving a little quicker, right? I should be getting that nurse like now, not when I get to it. So the further we are outside of our normal ranges, the faster we walk. Good? Make sense? So that's the difference between vital signs. Vital signs are, what are they? Pulse, respiration, temperature, blood pressure. Normal vital signs are the normal values for those vital signs. Does that help?
So I always heard that like the 120 over 80 was like the good
Yeah.
So there's two answers to that. Okay. And first, I'm going to address the lack of a range, the hard number. Okay. The problem with a hard number, 120 over 80, is that there's no variance there. If you get a blood pressure that's not 120 over 80, you have to report it. And in this classroom, there isn't a single one of you that is exactly 120 over 80. Blood pressure is not static. It is constantly adjusting. Your blood pressure changes with your posture. It changes with your hunger level. It changes with your fatigue level. It changes with the time of day. It changes whether you're drinking cold water or a warm liquid. It changes with how much you have to go to the bathroom. If you're empty, it's going to be a little bit different than if you're like, I think I got to pee. All of those things are going to change your blood pressure. Blood pressure is not a stable number. You're never exactly 120 over 80 and you stay there all day long. Doesn't work like that. So that's the problem with using a hard number. Okay. Now I want to talk about the numbers themselves. 120 is outside of our normal range. 100 to 119 is our normal range. 120 is outside of that normal range. 80 also outside of that normal range, 60 to 79. So effectively 120 over 80 is not an accurate or a ideal blood pressure. Now it used to be. Okay, about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, they revised their recommendations. Okay, the American Medical Association. When they did that, they gave about 14 million people high blood pressure overnight because it went from 100 to 139 down to 100 to 119. Okay, so that above 119 from 120 to 139 is now considered pre-hypertension. So that value that you're talking about, 120 over 80, was based on the old standards. So it's not a range, it's based on old standards, and it doesn't allow for individual flexibility for all of those variables we just discussed. Yes, absolutely. So here's the thing about blood pressure that just makes me kind of roll my eyes, right? We go to our doctor's office. First of all, nobody wants to be at the doctor's office, right? Your stress level is up. What does that do to your blood pressure? Yeah, it raises it. So right off the bat, just by walking in that door, you are higher than you normally are in your everyday life. Okay. Right off the bat. Now, chances are, in order to get to the doctor's office, you had to get in your car. You had to get dressed. You had to get in your car. You had to drive and deal with all the idiots on the road. You had to find a parking spot. You had to walk in, and it's usually a little bit of a distance. So you got some cardio going there, right? You walk in, you sign in, you sit in the waiting room, and you're anxious. You just want this over with. How long is this going to take? I've got things to do, right? So you're building yourself up. So outside of just being in a doctor's office, you've got all of this activity and stress. What do you think both of those things do to your blood pressure? Raises it. So and what's the first thing they do when you get into the room? Yeah, take your vital signs. First thing they do when you get in that room. So you are going into the room in a stressed state. Do you guys get that? Those blood pressure readings that you get at the doctor's office are not indicative of what your blood pressure is on a normal day. They aren't. So this is why we often tell people, take your blood pressure at home, same time every day, keep a record. Let's take a look at that, because that is you in your normal environment under your normal daily stress. It will give us a much clearer indication of what your blood pressure readings are than a single reading taken under stress. Make sense? So yeah, blood pressures at doctor's offices just make me kind of laugh, because, that's like going to a circus one day a year and thinking that elephants are roaming the streets. Right? You see elephants at the circus. Obviously, there's elephants in nature. So there's got to be elephants. If you open up the door, are there elephants? No. So we have to understand that what we're seeing at the doctor's office is not necessarily, it's kind of a special case, not necessarily indicative of what you are in your normal daily life. Make sense? Good. A lot of people don't realize that. And they go to the doctor, they get a high reading, and they start to freak out. Oh my gosh, I've never had high blood pressure in my life. What does this mean? And it gets under their skin. Well, it's okay. Let's take a look at what it is normally in your environment, not mine, because I've stressed you out just by you being here. Okay. Make sense? We don't really think about it that way though, do we? We also need to understand that those people may not know how to take a blood pressure. All right. Any other questions on these? Does that help you with your answers?
Yeah. I guess so.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that I got 95 on the
Okay. And what's your name?
Delilah.
Thank you. Okay. All right. This is our last review. I'm going to go through this really quickly, guys. How do we know what to do with each patient? Every skill starts with an opening. Every opening starts with a knock. How do we know when we need to wear gloves if we're going to touch? Okay, body fluids, personal skin, non-attack skin. If you're going to use supplies, you need a place to put them. We call that a barrier. If patient's uncovered or undressed, privacy blanket. Can you put anything on the floor?
No.
No. Patient should always be in the middle of the bed. Whatever we wash, whatever we rinse, we dry. Who checks the water? Yeah, us and the patient. Yeah. We clean the basin the same way every time. Rinse it, dry it, store it. Use paper towels though, so you're not recontaminating. If we are going to put a gait belt on, we have to make sure it's snug enough. How do we check it? 4 fingers. And our closing, the bed must be in the low position. Look how much you've learned. Okay, look how much you've learned.
These questions
Nope.
on the written test? Okay, because I keep
Nope.
saying center or I keep saying, center instead of middle.
Doesn't matter.
Okay,
And no, this isn't going to be on
Okay.
the written exam. This is,
just need to know.
yeah, the written exam. So let's talk about theory questions, because that's where I wanted to go today. So the written exam is not what you expect it to be. It's not. It's not going to ask you things like, what diseases affect the neurological system? Okay, which of the following is a neurological disease? It doesn't ask you things like that. That's not a CNA. Yeah, it's not in your scope of practice. Okay, does that make sense? So the questions that we expect to be on there, things like terminology, abbreviations, body systems, disease processes. This is what we're expecting when we go into the test. Because all of the tests you've ever taken in school is regurgitation of information. You read something, you take a test, and you mark the right answer based on your reading. That's what you're expecting on the state. That is not how the written test is structured. The written test is going to ask you questions that's going to evaluate whether you understand the importance of following the care plan. So you would have questions like, you are assigned to feed a patient in the dining room. Today, the patient says they'd rather stay in their room. Okay. So what does the CNA do? So this is a doing question. It asks, what does the CNA do? Right? So a lot of our questions are doing questions. Well, when it comes to care plans, there's only 3 answers. We either follow the care plan. If the patient is resistant, we encourage them to follow that care plan. And then if they continue to refuse, we notify the nurse. That's it. Those are our only 3 answers. So patient is the care plan tells us take the patient to the dining room. Patient says, I'd rather stay in my room today. What is our first action? Encourage. So we're going to look for the answer. It says encourage the patient to go to the dining room. That's it. That's it. There's your answer. Doesn't matter what anything else says. We're not going to tell them that if they don't go to the dining room, they don't get dessert. Right? We don't ever treat an adult like a child. We're not going to force them to go into the dining room because we don't ever force a patient to do anything. We're not going to change the care plan because we don't change the care plan to have all meals in the room. We're going to encourage the resident to go to the dining room. Now, if the question said, I'm going to change the question a little bit. If the question said, your care plan assigns you to take the patient to the dining room for meals, the patient refuses despite encouragement, you should. So we've already done the encouragement and they're still refusing. What is our next step? Report to the nurse. You now know how to answer all follow the care plan questions. We encourage and then we report. Good? Good? So easy. And you actually have a follow the care plan questions. The very first question we ever did in this class. You go to page 20. Look at number 1. You received the following care plan. How far will you walk this patient? Right. Why? Because that's what the care plan said, right? We follow the care plan. Got it? Number 2 is also a follow the care plan question. So is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So the very first questions we learned were how to answer care plan questions. And those questions will be easy to find because it'll say you are assigned to, or the care plan tells you to. So if you see any of those, it's a follow the care plan question. We either do it, we encourage them to do it, or we notify the nurse. Those are the only right answers. That's it. Period. Hard stop. Easy. Right? The next group of questions are apply the skill questions. That's everything that we have learned on the back wall. Everything that we've learned. Okay? So this would be something like you are bathing a patient in bed. Where should you put the washcloths after you use them? A, in the hamper, B, on the floor, C, on the bed, or D, on a barrier on the table? Barrier on a table, because you don't always have the hamper in the room, right? We're not going to leave the room with every washcloth. We're just going to put them on the barrier on the table, right? But we have to know that principle in order to understand what the right answer is. Make sense? So apply the skill questions. Always have a skill in the question. It doesn't say you are assigned to. Assigned, follow the care plan. It'll say you are performing, you are doing, feeding a resident, you are changing a bed, you are helping a patient stand, you are doing a skill. What do you need to know about that skill? And almost all of those have to do with proper procedure, what we've already learned. So if you know everything on the back wall, those questions, super easy. It's procedure questions. Easy. Now, they're not going to ask you things like, when do we use a privacy blanket? It doesn't come right out and say that. We're not regurgitating information. We're applying information. There's a difference there. Okay, there's a difference between regurgitating and applying. So the questions are written in a way that will make you apply that knowledge. Good? Then we have communication, which we already talked about. With dementia, we redirect, period. We redirect. If they don't have dementia, and if they don't have, it's not going to be in the question, right? If they have dementia, it'll tell you they have dementia. If they don't have dementia, we read the room, READ, respect, empathy, acknowledge, discretion. That will help you identify your answer. Then we get to T, which is what I wanted to talk to you about today. These are theory questions. These are the questions you are expecting. These are, what is a normal pulse rate? Okay, these are the regurgitation questions. You read it, you learned it, tell us about it. Okay, you won't have very many of these questions on the state exam. There are very few because CNAs aren't really, it's not what you know, it's what you do. Okay, our job is based on performance, not knowledge. Now, nursing is different. Nursing, their tests are based on what they know. So nursing tests are way different than CNA tests. Does that make sense? Good? Good. Okay, and then we have S for safety. Safety questions. You'll have quite a few safety questions on the state exam. 3 things you need to know about safety. First of all, we never leave a patient in an unsafe situation. So if there is a patient in a room with a fire, you cannot leave the patient in the room with the fire. Can't leave a patient in an unsafe situation. Got to move them. Got to get patients and fires can't be in the same place. Okay, so it's step 1, move the patient. If the patient is on the floor, we don't get them up. Not our job. Okay, they stay on the floor. We got to get a nurse. So getting them up puts them in an unsafe situation because if they have a broken hip and you stand them up on it, life can get really bad for these people. Not our job. Good, makes sense? Okay, so safety, don't leave your patient in an unsafe situation. If you're walking a patient and they say, oh, I don't feel right, we don't leave them there to go get the nurse, right? We don't leave our patient in an unsafe situation. So that's number 1. That's the first thing you need to know about safety. Don't leave your patient in an unsafe situation. Solve the problem. The second thing we do is notify the nurse. That's an observation. The patient's on the floor, somebody's got to know about it. If the patient says they're dizzy, somebody's got to know about it. If the patient is refusing meals consistently, somebody's got to know about it, right? Reporting. The third thing is that we never leave our patient alone in an emergency situation. If we have a patient who's having a seizure, we don't leave them to go get the nurse. We send somebody else to go get the nurse. Okay? If our patient fell and they're on the floor, we're not getting them up, we're going to send somebody else to go get the nurse. Or we're going to yell really loud. The way that most healthcare settings are designed is that you are never more than 50 feet away from a nursing station or a nursing area. And the reason that they do that is so that any staff member at any time can yell verbally for assistance and reach somebody. Okay.
Could you always or if there was a situation, could you just grab the patient's
Call light.
and
Here's the problem
use
with
that?
call lights. Yeah, here's the problem with call lights. And that's a very good question. But do you know who answers the call lights? That's right. It's not the nurses.
Right.
Now, if you're that patient's CNA and you hit the call light, you're calling yourself.
True.
And that's not really going to help you. But, okay, so I want to make that pretty clear. But in acute care settings, hospitals predominantly, some rehabs as well, if you pull that call light from the wall, it's plugged into the wall with a plug. I think we got that tied. It's like a RCA plug, right? The long, it's plugged into the wall. If you pull that out of the wall, it will trigger a code. And it goes over the loudspeaker and it'll say code blue, room 413. It's a great way to get all of the staff in the hospital in the room at one time. You're summoning like the whole rapid response team. So it's got to be something worth it. But if you are in a situation where you are fighting off a patient, and yes, this does happen because we do have psych patients that are there for gallbladder problems, right? So if you find yourself pinned between a irate patient and the wall and they're trying to beat on you, I'm pulling that cord out of the wall. I want as many people in that room as possible. Right? So that's a good reason to pull the cord. If you walk in a patient's room and it's very clear they are unresponsive and you have to start CPR, I'm pulling that cord because I don't want to be doing chest compressions for the next 3 hours. I've got about maybe 4 minutes of CPR in me. And that's when I'm in good shape. If it's the end of a 12-hour shift, I might have 2 minutes of good quality CPR, maybe. CPR is physically intensive. So if I know that I got to start compressions, I better get somebody on their way to come help me because I know that I'm not going to be able to do this for an extended period of time. Right? So I'm yelling at the top of my lungs. I'm pulling that call light out of the wall. I am sending the roommate, go to the nurse's station, CPR in progress. I am gathering the forces. And yes, I do absolutely put my patients in that situation. Go get me a nurse. If that roommate is ambulatory and can speak, they can absolutely go find me a nurse. Absolutely. Perfectly okay. Now, if the roommate is bedbound, they're not going to be much help. Okay. Pick your battles wisely there. But yes, I have absolutely sent roommates, especially in long-term care. These people know each other. This is where they all live, right? So wouldn't you help out a neighbor if you saw them in the middle of the road? Right? So they're motivated to help. In fact, they'll probably ask you, what can I do? Georgia's down. What do we do? Right? They're looking to you for direction. Give them a job. Perfectly okay. So good? Make sense? Good? All right. So when it comes to safety, the things you have to remember is never leave a patient in an unsafe environment, and never leave them alone in an emergency, and make sure that, above all, you always notify the nurse after they're in a safe situation. Okay? Address safety first and then that. Okay, so that's what we call FACTS. F-A-C-T-S. Follow the care plan, apply the principle, everything on the back wall, communicate effectively, theory questions, which is show what you know, and safety. All of those have rules, which we just went over. Follow the care plan, encourage patient to follow the care plan or report it to the nurse. Apply the skill, use all of your principles. Communicate effectively, which if they have dementia, we're redirecting If they don't have dementia, we're reading the room. Theory, show what you know, regurgitate that information. And safety, we just went over. Get them out of an unsafe environment, stay with them, and get a nurse, right? All of those. All right, then we have one more category, and that's CNA, the CNA category. In this case, CNA stands for Changes Need Assessment or Assessed. Changes need assessment. Now, CNAs don't assess. Who does that? The nurse. So if your question says, the patient suddenly develops, that's a change. Who has to be notified? You walk into a room and you notice. You don't notice things that are routine. What do you notice? Changes. So if it's something that you notice, it means it's not normal. Okay. Do you notice your bed every time you walk in your room? It's just there. Now, if it's normally made and today you walk in there and it's not made, you're going to notice that because it's different. It's a change. So look for that word notice. Notice means it's a change. Or the patient says, I'm awfully weak today. That's a change. All changes, no matter how minor they seem to you, must be reported to the nurse. So if you walked into a patient's room and you notice that the patient's skin is warm to the touch, report it to the nurse. Because we see that word notice. Make sense? You now know how to answer every single question on the state exam. Every single question on the state exam. If you want to practice this, my framework, I have a whole framework. It has hundreds of questions in it. It's an eBook download, immediate access. And I give you guys a $10 discount. It's Jake will send you guys the link for it, but it's on one of your papers. I don't know which one, the QR code for it, but it's the CNA facts framework. Okay. And I think it's after the $10 discount, I think it's $14.99. So.
Would you like me to put it up on?
Yeah, if you would, please. If you would. So that will help you practice all of these rules that we just went over. And I do it by category. We go over the F category, and then the A category, and then the C, and then the T, and then the S, and then the CNA. And then once you've done several questions in each category, I put them all together. And I guide you through it. It's 30 questions where I actually make you circle or figure out the word that's telling you what category this is. And then we give you 60 questions of putting it all together. And then I think there's 3 practice tests in there. So it is comprehensive. Okay. Use the code for success. Any questions on that? All right. So we're going to jump into today's lesson, transferring a patient from bed to wheelchair. Do you guys remember ambulate that we learned Monday, walking a patient? Okay, with ambulate, we made sure that their feet were flat on the floor. We put the gait belt on and checked it with 4 fingers. We stood at an oblique angle to help our patients stand, 1 foot in front of their feet, 1 foot to the side. We grabbed the gait belt around the side or the back, and we had them put their hands on our shoulders. And on the count of 3, we stood them up. You guys remember all that? Okay, this skill does all of that again. All of that again. But there are a few accommodations because we're not walking this patient. But I need you to understand that you know over half of this skill already. You know over half of this skill already. So this isn't a hard skill to learn. But it is a little bit challenging because it's a new piece of equipment we have to learn. So if we look down here, we can see all of the principles involved in this skill. They're all spelled out for us here. These are our skill-specific steps that relate just to this skill that we have to learn today. Down here is our test-specific information. It's telling us that the test is going to give us 11 minutes to do this skill. Now, if we remember ambulate, they gave us 5 minutes to do that. Here, they're giving us 11 minutes, which is way more time than we need. We're getting the patient out of bed and into a wheelchair. Way more time than you need. You're not taking them anywhere, and I'll show you that in the care plan in a minute. We're just getting them out of bed and into the wheelchair, using the same process we used for ambulate. So with ambulate, they give us 5 minutes, which is plenty of time, but maybe a little on the shorter time. Here, they're giving us 11 minutes, which is way more than we needed. I think they probably could have done like 7 minutes apiece and been just fine. Way more time than you need. Don't rush. This is done on a live testing student. That means that you guys might be a patient for somebody performing this skill. Okay? You're going to get specific instructions when you are the patient. I'm going to explain to you why they give you more time in just a second. There is a step here that will make this make sense to you. So our patient's going to start out in bed. This is not a documentation skill, but let's take a look at page 73. You can see the care plan at the top, our step-by-step instructions here, and our supplies at the bottom. Let's take a look at that care plan. That care plan tells us to transfer the resident from bed into the wheelchair. The resident is unable to walk or take steps. You want to underline that. Cannot walk or take steps. That means for the exam, if your patient has to take a step to get to that wheelchair, you have violated the care plan. No steps. You've got to get that wheelchair close enough to them that there's no steps, because our care plan says they can't. They can't take a step. So what would happen if you lifted a patient up that can't take a step and the wheelchair was too far away? They're going to fall. Make sense? So keep that in mind. This looks very minor. This is the biggest part of this care plan. They cannot walk or take steps. Physically cannot. So we've got to make accommodations to make sure that they're safe as we do this skill. Good? It says they can stand with support though. Awesome. Awesome. A gait belt or transfer belt is required to transfer the patient. Gait belt, transfer belt, same thing, 2 different names. I don't know why in healthcare we have 2 names for everything. I don't know why. Just go with it. Says the resident will stay in the room. So normally when we get a patient out of bed and into a wheelchair, we're taking them somewhere. If they were going to stay in the room, they'd probably just stay in bed or get put into a regular chair beside the bed. So if we're putting them in a wheelchair, it means that they're going somewhere. Meals, activities, physical therapy, they're going somewhere. But this skill is going to end with them in the wheelchair, leave them in their room. Somebody's going to come get them later. Okay. Now, that's important to know though, because if we're leaving a patient in a wheelchair in the room, should they be left facing a wall? No. So this is a mental well-being thing. So when you get the patient in the wheelchair, before you leave the room, you have to make, bless you, you have to make sure that the wheelchair is turned out so they have something to look at. The TV, they can talk to the roommate, they can look out the window, they can see people walking up and down the hallway. But there's a psychological reason for this, especially with our older individuals. Now we put people in timeout when they're little and they're doing things, right? Now we use timeout. What did they used to do before timeout became a thing? Say it loud. Yeah, put them in the corner or make them stare, put their forehead against the wall. That's right. So with an older individual, if you leave them staring at a wall, it is unconsciously a punishment. It will be interpreted as a punishment to them. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So it's important that we understand that. So we're going to turn them around so that they have things to look at, but leave them in the room at the end of the skill. Now, there's not much to teach you with this one. You know all of this. We follow the care plan. We do our opening. We evaluate if we need gloves. We're going to apply our shoe rules, and we're going to do the closing. Nothing there is new to us. We know all of these principles, but we don't know these. So we have to learn a little bit about the wheelchair. So let's talk about the wheelchair. I'm going to move some stuff around here real quick. So bear with me. Okay, so this is a wheelchair. Okay, wheelchairs are usually in the folded position like this for storage. To open a wheelchair, you lift up on the handles to get the big wheels off the floor so you don't have so much friction. Just lift up a little bit and open them. That's it. No buttons to push, no levers to pull. It's just mechanical. We just open it up. Now, if it doesn't open up all the way, if it opens up about this far, we're going to press down on these bars to push the seat completely flat. Don't get your fingers between these bars and the sides, though, because they'll get pinched. So when you do this, you want to keep your fingers on top of the seat. Good. To close a wheelchair for storage, make sure the foot pedals are up so they don't hit each other. And we just lift up on the center of the seat. Easy. Okay, good. Good. All right, there's a couple of things with this wheelchair that I want to point out. One of them is the brakes. So the brake is a lever that is going to be in front of the wheels. Some wheelchairs, you press the brake forward to engage it. Other wheelchairs, you pull the lever back to engage it. How do we know it's engaged? Well, right here is a little metal strip. Can you guys see the metal strip on the screen? If I pull this back, do you see what happens to that metal strip? It bites into the wheel. Okay, so now I know that this brake is engaged because I can see that metal piece up against the wheel. To release the wheelchair, I press it forward, and now I have a gap again. Good. There's a brake on each side. You have to learn how to work the brake in with whatever wheelchair you're working with. Because some wheelchairs, you'll have to push the lever forward, and some you have to pull back. It doesn't matter. What we're looking at is that metal piece. Is it in the wheel to keep it from rolling? Good? Questions on wheelchairs? Okay. Now, the other pieces that we want to talk about are the leg rests and the foot pedals. So this is a leg rest. This is a foot pedal. Foot pedals fold in to support the feet, or they fold up for storage and for transfers. So down is to support the feet, up is to get them out of the way. That makes sense. Leg rests here, leg rests are what hold the foot pedals in place. That's all they do. But this leg rest is in the way. If I try to put a patient into this wheelchair, it narrows the opening that their legs are going to have to navigate, which presents a tripping hazard. That's a bad thing. So these leg rests actually swing right out of the way. And the way that we swing them, so I'm going to turn this just a little bit, Jake, so they can see. Yeah, wait for me to adjust. I'm going to see if I can get it in. Right there. Okay. So right here, there we go. There we go. Okay. So right here is a little lever right here. You see my finger behind it? If you pull the lever in, it just releases the leg rest so it can swing out. To bring the leg rest back in, we just snap it in place. Good. Stay there, Jake. Okay. So now, actually, you're going to have to move it a little bit. Sorry. Yep. Right there. All right. These leg rests simply hang on this frame. I can pull it right off. There's two little protrusions right here. See those little posts? This just sits right on those posts. That's all. It's not attached to the wheelchair. It's literally just resting on these little posts. So what that means is these leg rests often go missing. They walk. People will take them off to clean the wheelchair. They'll take them off for transfers. They'll borrow them. They do all kinds of things. If this wheelchair, if these leg rests are off, that's going to be a problem for my patient later. I'll explain that in a minute. But understand that these come off. To put them back on, we have two little holes here. We just line up the holes with the posts and set them in place. Good? Good. All right. So foot pedals simply fold up and down. Leg rests swing out and in. Three configurations you need to know about. This is what your wheelchair should look like when it's in use. I've got a patient in the wheelchair. This is how it should look. The foot pedals should be down, supporting the feet. The leg rests locked forward. This is when a patient is using it. But if I try to get a patient into the wheelchair with it positioned like that, or get them out of the wheelchair with it positioned like that, it's a problem because I now have put a tripping hazard in my patient's way. Okay. So in order to get a patient into the wheelchair, we have to get all of this out of the way. We're going to flip these up and we're going to move those leg rests out of the way. And now I have a wide open space to get my patient in or take them out. And that's what it looks like here. Good. Now for storage, I don't want those leg rests out to the side because they flap around. And as I'm moving this wheelchair somewhere, those leg rests might injure somebody. So we want the leg rests, these things, locked forward. But we don't want the foot pedals down because if the foot pedals are down, when I try to collapse this wheelchair, those foot pedals are going to hit each other and they're not going to allow the wheelchair to collapse. So foot pedals up, leg rests forward. So this is storage. You guys understand the three? Got it? In use, for storage, transfers. Easy, right? Okay. So I really feel bad about this. Let me tell you the story. And I feel really bad for this poor worker. This happened in Georgia. And an older woman went to an imaging center to have some imaging done, whether x-rays, MRI, I don't know the specifics. She was all done. And she was in a wheelchair while, for transport and while she's waiting. She didn't normally use a wheelchair. Daughter is with her. Daughter goes out to get the car and brings it up to the front to get mom in the car to go. They were just there for, imaging. So the car is in front, blocking the front door. Patient's in a wheelchair. sitting there waiting. Transport was called, but transport did not come. You know, the people that are supposed to take the wheelchair out, help the patient from the wheelchair into the car. That's their job. They didn't come. They were busy. They could. So the receptionist who's sitting there sees the patient in the wheelchair, the car at the front door, and is waiting. Nobody's coming. So she thinks, well, I can do this. This is easy. So she takes the wheelchair outside and helps the patient from the wheelchair into the car. But she had not been trained. And she didn't know that those leg rests and foot pedals had to be moved. So she's got this woman who already has mobility problems. How do we know she had mobility problems? She's in a wheelchair. That's right. If she was able to walk on her own, do you guys go get a wheelchair when you're able to walk? No. Yeah. So if she's able to walk on her own, she would not be in the wheelchair. She has mobility problems. Got it? These foot pedals were in the way and she tripped over the foot pedals to get into the car. And there's a curb, the car, and this little space that she's trying to navigate over these foot pedals. She tripped and fell and broke her leg. So back in the facility, they have to go. And she's now earned herself a little stay. But who got in trouble? The receptionist, that's right. Now, the receptionist was just trying to do a good deed. Why do you think she got in trouble?
It's not in her job scope.
Say it loud.
It's not in her job scope.
It's not in her scope of practice. That's right. That's right. Now, we all think we know how to use a wheelchair. We all do. We think in the same situation, yeah, I probably would have helped her too. But the problem is there's always something that you don't know. And it's that lack of knowledge that's going to put our patient at risk. And this is why we always stay in our scope of practice. I feel bad for her. I really, really do. Because she lost her job over it. She tried to help somebody and lost her job. But do you think that makes the patient feel any better? Oh, well, she tried to help. Patient still has a broken leg. She still is going to have hospital bills and recovery and rehab and an interruption to her life. The good intentions here did not outweigh the effect. Does that make sense? Really important that we understand this. Even more importantly, the facility was sued. And the family got lots of money over this because it was an employee that stepped outside of their scope of practice. So I'm telling you this because in your day-to-day work, you might find yourself thinking, oh, I can do that, and taking it upon yourself to do that, whatever that is. If you were not assigned to do it, you can't do it. If you were not trained to do it, you can't do it. And your facility will probably be pretty crystal clear on this during orientation. And it's because of lawsuits like this. But let me tell you about one that happened in Ocala, right up the road, not too far from us. A patient wanted to get up out of bed, hit the call light, and a student nurse responded to the call. Student nurse was not assigned to that patient, knew nothing about the care plan, just was walking by, saw a call light, thought he'd do a good deed, walked into the patient's room. What do you need? Patient says, I want to get out of bed. And the student nurse says, okay, I can help with that. And tried to stand the patient up. Patient fell, hit his head, and ultimately died. Now, this patient on the care plan was a 2-person assist. Student nurse didn't know that. They never went and looked at the care plan. They had no idea about any of this patient's situation. Just try to get him up. Now, the student nurse was trying to do a good thing, right? Probably had been trained on how to stand a patient up last week and thought, here's my chance to shine. But was that student nurse assigned to do that task? Did that student nurse follow the care plan? So it doesn't matter what our intentions are. If we're outside of our scope of practice, it's a problem. Resulted in a lawsuit. The family won. Doesn't make the family any happier because dad is now dead. Make sense? Good. We have to be careful, really careful, not to step outside of our role because we're going to unknowingly put somebody at risk. And that student nurse did not think about that at all. He just answered the call light, thought, I'm going to help, and somebody died. What we do matters. And we've got to make sure that we're in our scope of practice. Now, had that student nurse gone to the nurse for the patient and said, hey, patient wants to get up. Do you want me to help? And the nurse said, yeah, go help, but didn't tell him about the two-person assist, that is on the nurse. But as it was, with the student acting on his own, he took the liability. Make sense? Okay. Important. All right, so let's talk about those foot rests and leg rests and foot pedals. Why they're there, why they're important, and why we really should be paying attention to them, and why you should never use a wheelchair without them. Now, there's two different types of wheelchairs. I do have to talk about this. This is a traditional wheelchair, big wheels. If it's got big wheels, it's a wheelchair. But there are some wheelchairs that have 4 small wheels. You know, the small wheels in front? They have small wheels in the back too. Those are not wheelchairs. They look like wheelchairs, but they're not wheelchairs. Those are companion chairs or transfer chairs. What makes them different is the wheelchair itself is lower. And that's specifically, there's no leg rests. There's no foot pedals. It is designed for the patient's feet to be flat on the floor when they're in the chair and allows them to pad around and move themselves with their feet. Good? 2 different kinds of wheelchairs here. The one I'm talking about right now, though, is our traditional wheelchair, big wheels, foot pedals. When we have a wheelchair and we put a patient into this chair, we have to make sure that their feet are supported on the foot pedals because of these. Running down the backs of your legs are arteries and veins. And where they are closest to the surface is right here behind the knees. This is where your arteries and veins are super close to the surface. Now, when you put a patient into a wheelchair, if we're not supporting those feet, remember the wheelchairs are taller, their legs are going to dangle, which means the edge of this wheelchair is going to cut right into the backs of the knees, and it compresses those vessels. Do you guys remember what I said happens to blood when it slows down or stops? Clots. That's right, clots. So what we're doing is compressing these vessels and keeping blood from the feet and the lower legs from getting to the heart, slows it down or stops it. So we are putting our patient at risk for blood clots. So this is why foot pedals are so important. When you put the patient in a wheelchair, put their feet on the foot pedals, it relieves the pressure on the backs of the knees so blood can then flow. But it's not just blood clots that we have to worry about here. It is also edema, swelling of the lower legs, because we're not just trapping blood down there, we're also trapping fluid. And the patient's legs can swell. So if you've got a patient in a wheelchair and their legs are swelling, make sure that that seat is not biting into the backs of the knees. And then notify the nurse, because that is an observation. Good? Make sense? Inside our veins are cool, especially lower extremity veins. They're really unique, really cool things. This is a low pressure system. So your body, your heart, pushes blood out into the arteries. Remember those waves? Those waves go all through your body, but they don't stay in really big hoses. The hoses get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and they eventually become capillaries. And capillaries are like smaller than the width of a human hair. Tiny. Well, by the time we get the blood to the capillaries, those waves long gone. Right? This is barely a trickle. Barely a trickle. Because we have to get this blood in an area where it can slow down enough that the gases can be exchanged, the glucose can hop out, right? We can get the stuff from the blood into the tissues where it needs to go. Make sense? Then once it's out of the capillaries, it goes into veins. Those get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and go back to the heart. So from big to small, capillaries, small to big. Got it? Well, once we get the blood into the veins, there's no pressure there. Pressure's all bled out into the capillaries. So this blood has to get from my big toe back up to my heart with very little pressure behind it. That's a hard thing to do. So what we did is in the veins, we built a ladder. We put these little valves in there. So the blood gets advanced into this chamber, and then the heart rests, and the valve closes. Keeps the blood in this chamber, keeps it from falling all the way down back to the ankles. And then the heart beats again, and we get a boost past the valve into this chamber, and then the heart rests, and now our blood is here. And then the heart beats again, and we get another boost into the next chamber. And it literally climbs this ladder back up to your heart. Pretty cool. Problem is, these valves, while important, are a choking point for blood when it's compressed. So we end up with clots right here. Okay. So when your patient's feet are in a wheelchair, they need to be on a foot pedal to prevent that clotting from happening in the veins. Foot pedals are important, guys. They're important. And the problem is they fall off pretty easily. So don't ignore them. All right. So when we're going to put a patient from a bed into a wheelchair, so we have a patient, we're going to swing them around, so they're sitting on the side of the bed. I'll show you how to do that. And then we're going to put them in the wheelchair. Well, because we have to swing them around to sit on the side of the bed, I don't want my wheelchair in the way. If I'm going to try to swing this patient around and my wheelchair is here, what's going to happen to their legs? Yeah, they're going to hit the wheelchair. So we're going to prep our wheelchair first. We're going to get those leg rests out to the side, fold the foot pedals up. Our wheelchair is prepped and ready, but I'm going to have it away from the bed a little bit. So I can swing this patient around so they're sitting on the side of the bed. And then I can grab the wheelchair and bring it toward me when I'm ready, within reach, but not so close it's going to affect the patient's ability to move onto the side of the bed. All right, so we're going to fold those foot pedals up. We're going to fold the leg rests out. This is a critical checkpoint. If you don't do these two steps, it is an automatic fail. Good? Why? Why would it be an automatic fail? Yep, putting the patient at risk. Now we're going to help our patient sit up on the side of the bed. Now, let me tell you about this step. A lot of people think that this takes a lot of strength, particularly upper body strength. This does not. It takes a little bit, but it doesn't take as much as you think it's going to take as long as you prep correctly. The way that we get a patient sitting on the side of the bed is through a pivot. The biggest mistake that most people make, they get this arm just fine. This arm goes under the shoulders all the way across. Okay, I'm going to get this arm under the shoulder. But then we do this one under the legs and try to turn them. That does not work, guys. This isn't a honeymoon carry. Okay, I'm not going to carry her across a threshold somewhere. This is a pivot. So I'm going to put this arm under the shoulders, but this one goes over the legs. And when I do that, we just do this. And it's super easy. It is not a hard turn to make. In fact, it'll probably go a little quicker than you anticipate. So make sure you keep your hand on the patient to make sure they're not dizzy or unsteady or anything after the turn. Everybody needs to try this. Make sure the bed is locked before you pivot the patient. I can pivot somebody way taller than me. I can pivot somebody heavier than me if I set it up right. But I don't want my patient starting in the middle of the bed. That's too far for me to stretch. So I'm going to ask my patient to scoot closer to me on the side of the bed, hand under the shoulders, over the knees, and I want her to move as a unit. Remember with ambulation, we had them put their hands on our shoulders to move them as a unit? This time, we're not going to do that. We're going to have them cross their arms over the chest to keep everything contained. Good? Good. You can actually move somebody this way a whole lot easier than you think you can. Now, if you truly have no upper body strength, you can put the head of the bed up to help. Now you're just trying to move their lower body around. But you lose momentum by doing this. It's actually easier to go from a laying position to a sitting position than it is from a sitting to a sitting, because you lose that momentum. So if you truly have to do that, put the head of the bed up, but remember there's a trade-off there. Okay, good? Good. Once we get them sitting on the side of the bed, we're going to let them acclimate. It's called dangling. Okay, dangling, which means that we're letting that blood kind of equalize. While we're letting them dangle, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to put shoes on, because when their feet hit the floor, we got to talk about their shoes. And patients in bed aren't wearing shoes, so that means we have to put them on. Remember I was talking about timing for this skill a while ago, and I told you there's a reason that they give you a little bit more time? This is why, because we have to physically put shoes on our patient before we transfer them. Now, for the test, if you get this skill, they are going to pair you up with somebody your body size or smaller. And they're going to try to find somebody that just has slip-on shoes. That shortens the skill. Where do those evaluators want to be? At home in their pools drinking their margaritas. They don't want to be watching you tie shoes. That's boring. Okay, so they would look for somebody your body size or smaller with slip-on shoes. And you don't even realize they're doing this when they check you in. Okay, so when they check you in, they kind of give you a quick once-over. Nurses assess like we breathe. You have no idea the assessments I've made of all of you every day that you've come in this classroom. Nurses assess like we breathe, completely unconsciously. So I know which one of you has slip-on shoes. I don't even have to look because I already have. Okay. So they're going to try to pair you up with somebody that has slip-on shoes that is your body size or smaller. Good? In other words, they're going to make this as easy as possible on you. But there are situations that come up where you're going to have to put shoes on and you're going to have to tie them, do what you need to do. Make sure those shoes are secured before you transfer. Good? Okay. Once we get their shoes on, we're going to put the gait belt on. Doesn't matter which comes first. You can do gait belt first if you want. You can do shoes first if you want. Doesn't matter. But they're dangling this whole time to let their pressures equalize. So shoes and their feet should be flat on the floor before the transfer. Gait belt, we're going to check it with 4 fingers. And then we're going to bring that wheelchair close. You guys see this wheelchair? See this patient? This is too far away. It looks close, doesn't it? Nope, still too far away. I should just be able to fit a piece of paper, a single piece of paper between that wheel and this person's leg. I can fit a book between that wheel and this person's leg. Not close enough. Because when I stand this patient up, do you see where their feet are going to be? When we pivot him around, this foot is going to be equal with this one. Do you see how far away from the wheelchair he is? If I try to sit him down, he's not going to reach that wheelchair. And what's going to happen to him? He's going to fall. So when you're doing a wheelchair skill, when you're transferring a patient that cannot take steps, the furthest foot away from the wheelchair is the one you want to pay attention to. How far away from the wheelchair is that foot? Because this one is going to pivot around to be equal with that. And then how far is that from the wheelchair? Make sense? Good?
So where is it supposed to be? Like, is it supposed to still be like in that angle? Or is it like...
Yeah, we're going to have the wheelchair at an angle. Yes. But if I've got this guy sitting closer, right? And this foot is more like here. When he turns around, he's right there at the wheelchair. Okay. Okay. So that's what you want to pay. When you pivot, you're always pivoting on this foot. Good? Make sense?
So the pivoting is just to help them like be in the proper
Position to sit in the wheelchair. Yep. Yep. That's it. That's it. And I probably want his feet a little closer together. So do you guys see that this looks good, doesn't it? On paper, it looks good. It's not close enough. All right, so we got to make sure a patient is the wheelchair is locked before he transfers so the wheelchair doesn't roll away. We already know this. And we're going to make sure that the patient's feet are flat on the floor before the transfer. This transfer takes 5 seconds, maybe. We got 11 minutes to do this skill. But lifting the patient up, over, can you feel the wheelchair sit down? 5 seconds is a stretch. I mean, that's like way more time than I need. I got 11 minutes to do a 5-second transfer. So this skill is all about the prep work, getting the patient sitting on the side of the bed, putting the gait belt on, putting the shoes on, making sure they're not dizzy, getting the wheelchair in the right position, making sure it's locked, foot pedals are out of the way, getting ourselves in the right position, foot parallel, foot perpendicular, getting the gait belt, having them put their hands on our shoulders, and on the count of 3, we're going to stand 1, 2, 3, and then pivot. Notice I didn't move, right? My feet are exactly where they were. Okay. I may, as I pivot, if their feet are in the way, I may have to take a step. I can take a step. Who can't? The patient. So I'm going to lift, pivot. They need to know that wheelchair is behind them, though. So I need to hesitate a second. Can you feel that wheelchair behind you? It's a long time for me to hold a patient, though. So what I do before I lift and pivot, while we're still over here, before I lift the patient, I'm going to tell this patient, listen, I'm going to stand you up. I'm going to pivot you. When you feel that wheelchair behind your legs, I want you to say, sit. Okay. So when I lift you and pivot you, when you feel the wheelchair, say, sit. So now, ready? 1, 2, 3, lift, pivot, sit, down. Way easier. Now, once I get the patient sitting in the wheelchair, we're going to get that gait belt off. We're going to make sure their hips are back against the back of the seat. We're going to turn them around so they're not facing the wall. We're going to put those leg rests and foot pedals in the correct position and support their feet, and we're going to lock the wheelchair. We need to make sure that they can reach that call light. So if the wheelchair is over here and the call light is on the bed, that's no good. So we might want to bring the wheelchair closer to the bed so they can reach the call light, or hand the patient the call light directly. They have to have a way of calling us. Okay, good. Remember our foot placement. You guys remember this? 1 foot in front of their feet, 1 foot beside their body. This keeps their feet from sliding out as we lift them. Controlled descent. And remember, your patient cannot take steps. So you need that close. Put their feet on the foot pedals. Remove our gait belt. Don't slide it against the skin. And make sure they look comfortable. Good. Easy peasy. All right, so let me show you. I'm just going to show you with a mannequin real quick how to pivot this patient around the side of the bed. So they're sitting on the side of the bed. It's easier with a patient than it is with a mannequin because she doesn't move very well. But let me show you. Yeah, I was just going to check that. Nope, she's good. All right. Okay, so in order to get my patient sitting on the side of the bed, I don't want their feet tangled in that sheet. All right, Miss Jones, scoot your body toward me. Good. Now I need you to cross your arms over your chest. Of course, she can't do that, but I'm going to put this arm all the way under her shoulders. I want this furthest shoulder in my palm. Wide base of support for me. This is too shallow. I need to be like this. Hand over the knees, and on the count of 3, we're going to pivot. 1, 2, 3. Just like that. Okay, good. Whoop, Miss Jones. All right. All right, any questions on that? Good. This is why we have privacy curtains. All right, Jake's going to show you this video. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a second. One more time. Let's go through the checklist. Forgot about the checklist. Sorry, Jake. Okay, so we're going to use all of these principles to check off our checklist. We're going to do our care plan. We're going to do our opening. We're going to decide if we need gloves. We may not, depending on our patient. We're going to use our gait belt. A lot of checkpoints there for gait belt. We're going to transfer the patient according to our care plan, and we're going to do our closing. This care plan is only for this patient, nobody else. Every patient's going to be different. Now Jake will show you the video. Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Fantastic. Would you like to get out of bed and into the wheelchair?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll be happy to help you with that. Let me close your curtain, wash my hands, get my supplies, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'll grab the gait belt. And I'm going to bring the wheelchair within reach, but not too close to the bed. All right, Mr. Jones, I'm just going to remove your sheet. We'll pull it all the way to the end of the bed. And I'm going to help you sit up on the edge of the bed. So to do that, can you scoot your body toward me? Bed is locked. You're going to cross your arms over your chest and relax. I'll do all the work. I'm just going to pivot you around so you're sitting on the side of the bed. Please let me know if you get dizzy or unstable at all. So I'm going to wide base of support, leaning against the bed, making sure the wheels are locked. I'm going to place one arm all the way under the shoulders and the other arm over the knees, bending at the knees, not the waist, and we're going to pivot. 1, 2, 3. Good?
Yes.
Okay, you can relax your arms. I'm going to help you put your shoes on now. Okay, first shoe and the second shoe. And are your feet flat on the floor?
Yes.
I'm going to place this gait belt around your waist. making sure that it's not twisted or kinked. And we'll secure it by sliding the gate belt into the first guard, pulling it so that it's snug. We'll check it with 4 fingers, and then slide it through the second guard. I'm going to bring the wheelchair close at a slight angle, almost touching the patient. And we'll lock the wheels. All right, Mr. Jones, can you bring your feet together and back a little? Are your feet flat on the floor?
Yes.
You're going to place your hands on my shoulders. I'm going to lift you to a standing position, pivot you, and when you feel that seat behind your knees, I want you to say sit, and I'll help you sit.
Okay.
Okay, you're going to place your hands up here. And on the count of 3, we're going to lift and pivot. 1, 2, 3.
Sit.
And we'll remove that gate belt. Okay, and I'm just going to bring the gate belt behind you and turn you around to get your feet onto the foot pedals. So we're going to turn around. I'm going to bring the first foot pedal forward. Make sure it locks into place. And then place the foot on the foot pedal. We'll then lock the wheelchair. I'll lock this side, support your leg, bring the leg rest and the foot pedal, and support the foot. Are you comfortable?
Yes.
Is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here?
No, thank you.
Would you like a magazine before I go?
No, thank you.
Let me get your call light. Here's your call light. If you need anything at all, just press that red button and somebody will be happy to come help. I'm going to open the curtain and go wash my hands. On the way, I'll return the gate belt to storage. After washing my hands, I'll think about my skill, make any corrections, and tell the evaluator my skill is done. Questions? The whole video took less than 5 minutes. They gave you 11. Plenty of time. Don't rush this one. Safety is the main point of this skill. Safety. Wheelchair safety and patient safety. Both are graded. Good? Questions?
No,
Yeah.
I was just scratching my chin.
Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our break just a little bit early because the next skill is feeding, and I have a lot to tell you about feeding, and it takes me about 30 minutes or so, so I'd rather take the break a little bit earlier than push it off to later, okay? So break now, and then feeding. All right, we're back. So the question is, this question came up during break. What is the difference between a CNA and a PCT? What do you need to get into a hospital? Where should you work? Right, all of these types of questions. I call this alphabet soup, okay? A whole bunch of letters. HHA, CNA, PCA, PCT, NT, MHT, BHT, right? There's so many different letters. What do they all mean? And what is required to get all of those things? And should you add more to your CNA certification to improve your opportunities of getting in at certain places? Big topic. I'm going to try to condense it a little bit. The first thing you need to understand is that there are only two settings where you must be a CNA to work, where you have to be certified to work. And that is a nursing home and home care if you don't have a home health aide. You have to have something to work in home care because you're unsupervised. No nurse right there. So we got to know that you've got some type of skill level, right? So either a home health aide or a CNA, you can work in home care. In a nursing home, you must have your CNA. Other than that, it is not legally mandated in Florida that you be a CNA to work in any other setting. So that means that you can work in a hospital and not be certified. You can work in mental health and not be certified. You can work in a walk-in clinic and not be certified. Okay? So if you are working in any of those other settings, we can't call you a CNA because you're not certified, right? We keep that term specifically for people who have gone through the test. Good? Makes sense so far? So if we can't call you a CNA, what else are we going to call you? Well, what do we want to call you here? Some places will say, oh, let's call it a nurse tech. Other places will say, let's call it a patient care tech. Some places will say, oh, we like patient care assistant better here. And then other places will say, well, we use patient care attendant. Others will say, well, in mental health, we call you a mental health tech. And then other mental health places say, we prefer behavioral health tech here. So you have to understand there is a difference between legal, okay, what the law requires, and what employers want to call you. So this is no different than any other industry, okay? If you go to work in a restaurant and you're working at the front, they might call you a hostess, or they could call you a reservationist, or they could, what was the other term that I saw? Receptionist or greeter, right? The name doesn't matter. You're doing the same job, right? It's just what do they want to call you here? Same thing in healthcare. Good so far? So when you're looking at opportunities and you just limit yourself to CNA opportunities, you are excluding a whole big group of potential workplace opportunities for you. So you kind of have to go into it with that level of awareness. So do you want to work in a rehab? Don't need to be certified for that. You want to work in a hospital? Don't need to be certified for that. But why would they advertise CNA if they don't require a CNA? Well, the simple answer is they don't want to train you. And if you've already got your CNA, then they don't have to train you because your skills are already preloaded. So legally, they don't require, the state of Florida doesn't require that you have a CNA to work at a hospital. But the hospital gets to decide who they want to hire and what credentials those people need to have. So you will see hospital opportunities for CNAs. Does that make sense? Are we all on the same page here? Okay. It's because they simply don't want to train you. It really is that simple. You come pre-trained, preloaded. But right now, you guys are all eligible for those positions. You are trained. You are trained. So you can apply for those positions. And if they ask you, do you have your CNA? You can say, no, I completed the training, but I'm getting ready to test. Here's my test date. You're eligible. Good? Got it? Okay, so the next question is, should I take additional classes, get additional certifications to make me more attractive? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on where you're trying to work. Because if you're going to work in a hospital on a med surg floor, having your phlebotomy will help you not at all. They have a whole department of phlebotomists. They don't need you to draw blood. They have people for that. So you just spent all of that money and all of that time to get a certification that will not benefit you at all. They're not going to hire you because you have your phlebotomy certification because they don't need it. Now, if you're trying to work in a setting like a doctor's office that requires phlebotomy, well, that would be a good time to think about getting your phlebotomy certification because the job itself requires it. So be careful about trying to front load all of these certifications on, because in a lot of cases, it's a waste of time and money. It's not going to benefit you. If you're going to go to work in an assisted living facility, you will never do an EKG. You will never take phlebotomy. But if you got your Alzheimer's certification, 4-hour class, that would help you tremendously. Good? Makes sense? So you want to try to tailor your additional certifications to the workplace you're trying to get into. So if you want to work for hospice, a death and dying hospice certification would help you tremendously, because we do deal with hospice patients a little differently than we deal with patients that are trying to get better, right? The goal is different here. And you'd really want to know how to communicate with not just patients, but their families. Very stressful time. We say the wrong thing and it can ruin the entire experience for everybody. So communication is going to be pretty important here. Does that make sense to everybody? So when it comes to opportunities, you can start looking for CNA opportunities, but understand that may only show you a very small percentage of the job openings that you might qualify for. You might want to just look through all of the, everything that's there and look at the job description to see what they require. But for the most part, CNAs, well, always CNAs work under nurses. So anybody that works under a nurse can work as a CNA because the nurse has liability. The nurse tells you what to do, and only 2 settings require that you actually have your CNA for that position. Good? All right. You're welcome. Any other questions on that? Okay, Jake, put up the workplace personality quiz, please. So I actually have a quiz to help you with this. It is on my For Your CNA site. So go to foryourcna.com. If you scroll down on the page, you'll see it right in the middle. It'll say, find your ideal workplace. Where should you work? This will take you directly to it, foryourcna.com/your-ideal-workplace. It's a 19-question quiz. It is super quick, takes 5 minutes to do. And it's all based on your personality and what you need out of a workplace. So a good question to ask yourself is, when you're trying to think, where should I go? A lot of people want to start out at the hospital. That's kind of where they have their heart set on. They've watched way too much Grey's Anatomy, and I can tell you Dr. McDreamy is not there. Okay? But here's the problem with starting out in a hospital. It is fast-paced. Fast-paced. They do not have time for you to figure out how to give a bed bath. You better have that skill down. They don't have time for you to figure out, is this blood pressure normal or is this something I need to report? They don't have time for you to perfect your skills. You've got to hit the ground running because there is no time. You also have to be okay with change, because on a regular shift, you start out with 6 patients, you end with 8, and 4 of them are not the same that you started with. One shift. You've had 4 admissions and 2 discharges, in addition to all the rest of the things that you have to do. That's a lot of change. And you've got to be able to keep all of that straight. If you are the type of person that doesn't handle change well, the hospital is the worst place in the world for you. That is not going to meet your needs. And you'll get very frustrated, and they're going to get very frustrated with you. So I don't want to set you up for failure, because what will happen is you've got it in your mind, I want to work at the hospital. You take your test, you get certified, you go apply, you get hired at the hospital. And then a week later, you realize, I hate this. This is not what I thought it was. It's horrible. I want out. And then you don't just leave the hospital, you leave healthcare. You think to yourself, this isn't for me. I'm done. Now, you've just unfortunately thrown away all of this time and all of this money on something that you now think isn't right for you. But it probably isn't that the CNA that's not right for you. It's the workplace that's not right for you. Because there's a big difference between working in a hospital and working in a nursing home, or working in mental health and pediatrics, or working in a walk-in clinic and hospice. Those are all way different experiences with the same skill level. Make sense? So you kind of have to figure out where you should start. What's going to meet your needs? And this, strangely enough, has very little to do with the setting. It has to do with you. You have to think about things like, how good am I at working with a team? Am I the type of person that likes being around other people, likes getting close relationships with my coworkers? We go out for drinks every week. We're, a good close group. Or am I the type of person that would rather just go in, do my job, go home? Don't really want to be part of the group. Okay. Which one are you? Are you the type of person that is a self-starter? You know a job needs to be done, you do the job. Or are you the type of person that needs a little bit of external motivation because you can get stuck on your phone pretty quickly? Which one are you? Do you need 12-hour shifts? You just want to work 3 days a week, 12-hour shifts, you're done, you're good for 4 days on you. You get to do what you want to do. Or do you have kids in daycare and you need banker's hours, right? Because if you're working 12-hour shifts at 7 to 7, most daycares aren't open at 7 p.m. And what if you get held over? What if you get an admission at 6:45 and you can't leave at 7? Right? So you have to think about things like this. Do you need your holidays off because you guys go out of town? You got family trips every holiday. Well, if you're working in clinical care, you're not getting every holiday off unless you maybe work in a walk-in clinic. These are all things that you need to know about yourself, your own habits, your own needs, to figure out which workplace is going to fit with you. And that's what I did. I created a quiz for you to help you out with that. Okay, it's free. Takes 5 minutes of your time. It'll save you a ton of heartache later in your life. And it's scary accurate. Oh my gosh, it is. It took me 2 years to develop this. There's a ton of psychology in here. And I tested it on over 2,000 currently certified nurses and CNAs. And it is scary accurate. So it'll help you. All you got to do is take it. It's free. All right. Oops. Let's go back here. Feeding a resident who's in a chair. Go ahead and take it. Thank you. Down here are all of our principles. They're all spelled out for us here. We know them all. There's nothing new here. Down here is our test-specific information. Somebody with your level of experience should be able to feed somebody in 9 minutes or less. This is a live patient skill. That means you might be fed on the state exam. That person will be sitting in a chair at the beginning of the skill, and it is a documentation skill. Let's take a look at the specifics. Care plan at the top, step-by-step instructions here, our documentation sheet here, so you can see what it's going to look like. Supplies are at the bottom. Let's look at this care plan. Feed a resident a snack. What are we feeding them? Are we feeding them a meal? A snack. And we got 9 minutes to get that done, guys. Way more time than you need. Says the resident, unable to feed him or herself, the resident is sitting in a chair in an inappropriate position for eating. Underline that. Inappropriate position for eating. That is the most important statement on this care plan. Inappropriate position for eating. Remember, they're starting out in a chair, but they're in an inappropriate position for eating. So I'm going to time out here. We'll come back to this care plan in just a second, but let me explain this. When you go take the test, you are going to be a patient for somebody else to do their skills. Some of the skills that you have to be a patient for, they're going to give you very specific instructions. So an evaluator would take you to the side, and they're going to tell you, okay, you're going to be a patient for this skill. She's going to feed you. She's going to feed you a snack. You're only going to take 4 bites, no more. After the 4th bite, you'll say, I'm done. Thank you very much. I don't want any more. However you want to do it, but just refuse anything else after 4 bites. Got it? Now, I want you to slump or slouch in your chair. However you want to do that, just don't be sitting up straight. Okay? So those are the instructions you would get. So your idea of slumping or slouching is probably a little different than mine. So when I walk up and I see you, it may not trigger that you're slumping or slouching. So like if I do that again. Okay, so if I look at him, it doesn't really look like he's slumping or slouching too much because every 12-year-old boy on the planet eats meals just like that. Okay, so in my mind, that doesn't really trigger that he's slumping or slouching. But what does our care plan say? Inappropriate. So it doesn't matter what my eyes tell me. I'm going to tell him, hey, can you sit up straight, please? That is why this is the most important clause on this care plan. It is telling you they're not in an appropriate position. Now, when you're out there working, no care plan is going to say this. There isn't a care plan out there that's going to tell you they're inappropriate. They're going to rely on your eyes. So pay attention when you're feeding somebody.
Okay, so in this, we don't help them get into a proper position.
Just going to tell them, sit up, please.
Okay.
Yep. Can you sit up straight?
Okay.
In a clinical setting, you may have to help reposition somebody. You may have to use some pillows to prop them up. Again, go by your care plan and your nurse. All right, and then it tells us document the intake on a food and fluid intake form. We can see that on the page, a little like picture of it. But if you go to page 169 in your book, you'll actually see the entire food and fluid intake form. You can use those for practice. So if we look at our principles coming down here, we know them all. We know to follow the care plan. We know to do the opening. We know to figure out if we need gloves. I'll talk about gloves in a minute. We know nothing goes on the floor, and we know to do our closing. None of that has changed, but let's talk about gloves for this skill. You are on the other end of a spoon. You are not contacting body fluids here. You are on the other end of a spoon. Okay? If the patient has a drooling problem or has a problem where food comes out, you may need gloves because that's saliva. Okay? But as a general feeding situation, gloves are not required. You are at the other end of a spoon. Good? For the test, you are going to eat like you eat, which means you are not going to drool. You are going to open your mouth, accept the spoon, swallow the contents. Okay, good. But in a clinical setting, if you use gloves, you need to understand there's a cost to that. I'm not talking about a financial cost. I'm talking about a cost to the patient because the material that we make gloves out of has an odor, and that odor is an appetite suppressant. So when you wear latex gloves for feeding a resident, the odor of those gloves can negatively impact the patient's appetite. So we don't wear gloves unless we need to. And if we need to, we want to try to find vinyl gloves or things that don't give off an odor. Okay. If you're trying to lose weight, I do not recommend sniffing latex gloves as an appetite suppressant. Don't do that because you might give yourself a latex allergy with repeated exposure. All right, so now let's look at our skills-specific steps. Remember I said that we are going to offer them a snack. Now for the test, a snack is a single-serve pudding or applesauce cup. That's what we're giving our patients, single-serve pudding or applesauce cup. And how many bites are they taking? 4. And then they're going to say no more. So we're talking about just a very, very, very little bit of this pudding or applesauce cup because the spoon should only be half full. Very little bit. This does not take 9 minutes. 4 half spoonfuls is what we're giving. Okay, good. Don't rush. You have plenty of time here. All right, the problem is that this skill doesn't follow our normal rules. It is a rule-breaking skill. And one of the ways it doesn't follow our normal rules is we're not going to use a barrier. This is the one time we're using this table for what it's supposed to be used for, and our food tray is our barrier. Our food is on the tray. The tray is on the table. That is the barrier, so you don't need a barrier. Good? We don't close the privacy curtain. Eating is a social event. People gather in groups to eat. Think of every major milestone you've had in your life. Every party, birthday parties, baby showers, weddings, anniversaries, graduations, right? Every major life event that you've had a party, what has been at the party? Food. Food is social. And in fact, we don't even need a social or an event to have a food-based social gathering. We can have a barbecue cookout and invite our friends and neighbors. We can have a Friday night get together. We can go out to eat on a Tuesday, right? Food is central to our socialization. And I'll prove it to you. Have you ever walked into a restaurant? Is the restaurant dead silent?
No.
No.
Restaurants are noisy places. Noisy places. And that's because people are talking. No, you're not talking with your mouth full. You take a bite and chew, somebody else talks. You swallow, they take a bite, you respond. You have conversations when you eat all the time. And if you don't have somebody to have a conversation with, you turn on TV, you read a book, or you pull up social media on your phone. You are socialized while you eat. Very few people will eat and stare at a wall. That's boring. That's weird, right? So that means if we know that eating is socialization, it means that we are responsible for the socialization part of eating when we're feeding somebody. So we are going to sit at eye level. We need to be on equal ground here. If I'm standing and you're sitting, that is an imbalance. Need to be on equal ground. I need to pull up a chair, have a seat. We're going to have a little conversation. I can ask you about your day. I can talk about sports. I can even talk about politics or religion. I don't care. What I want to do is get you engaged socially. Okay, good. So we're going to have a conversation. Now for the test, it doesn't have to be a real conversation. You can make something up. Like, did you go to the cookout on Labor Day? Oh, it was so good. Those hamburgers. I don't know what they did with those hamburgers, but they were delicious. Make something up. But you need to have a conversation, okay, for the test. Good? Good? All right. We don't close the privacy curtain because closing the privacy curtain isolates the patient. They won't eat as well. We're not socializing them. We have to sit to get on equal ground, and we have to have a conversation. So these are rules that don't apply to any other skill. We don't pull up a chair and sit with any other skill. We don't have to have a conversation with any other skill. We do want to tell them what we're doing with the other skills. But can you imagine how awkward that would be? I'm going to take your spoon and put it into the food and get a little bit out. And then I'm going to bring it up and you're going to open your mouth. Yeah, exactly. No, we're not doing that. We're not telling them what we're doing with them with this skill. We're having a conversation like they're real adults. Okay. So be careful with this. These are things that don't apply to any other skill but this one. That's why I wait until the end to show you this one, because it doesn't follow our rules. So the first thing we want to do is make sure our patient is sitting upright. We're just going to give them a verbal cue. Could you please sit up straight for me? We're going to offer them a hand wipe. Now they don't have to take it. Perfectly okay. We're going to offer though. And that's because normally people wash their hands before they eat. If you don't, you should. Okay. So hand washing is part of the eating ritual. You should know enough about infection control now that you should be washing your hands like for real with soap and water for real before you eat. Because remember, this is a whole, right? Good. So we want to offer our patient a hand wipe. Yes, I know we're feeding them. I get it. I know where your mind is right now. But wait, I'm the one feeding them. Why do they need a hand wipe? It's because we didn't say they were paralyzed. You read that into the care plan, not me. It says they cannot feed themselves. You put whatever you want on there. All it says is they can't feed themselves. Could it be from Parkinson's because they shake too much? Sure. Could it be because they are absolutely physically exhausted and just don't have the strength to feed themselves? Sure. Or could it be because they are so depressed that if they have to feed themselves without socialization, they'll give up too early? Sure. All of those reasons I just gave you are valid reasons for me to have a CNA feed a patient, and all of them keep the patient's ability to move their arms freely. So if your patient starts dripping stuff, if food doesn't make it all the way into the mouth, they might reach that hand up and wipe that food away. Now we've got a dirty hand next to a mouth. Is that a good thing? No. So we want their hands clean before we feed them. Give them a hand wipe. If they don't want it, that's fine. That's fine. Now, once I've given them a hand wipe and they wash their hands with it, I've already done my whole opening. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, Mr. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. I'm here to help you with a snack. Is that okay? And I'm going to go wash remember, I'm not closing the curtain. I'm going to go wash my hands, and I come back. My hands are clean. I'm going to give him a hand wipe, but my hands are clean. What could I use between my clean hands and that dirty hand wipe? What could I use there?
Yeah.
Paper towel. Yeah, absolutely. I can grab a barrier, grab a paper towel, get the hand wipe, and throw it away. Good? Good? All right. We're also going to offer a clothing protector. They may say yes. They may say no. Either way is fine, but we're going to offer. Me, you offer me a clothing protector, I'm taking it. I wear everything. Every meal I eat is evident on me. Okay. This is my ADHD. I just go too fast. My mind is 3 steps ahead of where my hand actually is. It's a problem for me. So you offer me a clothing protector, I'm going to take it. Sure. Now you offer my grandmother a clothing protector, Miss Prim and Proper. She will clearly tell you I am not a child. Okay. So we're going to go by what our patient wishes here. Good? Good. Okay, you have to be in a sitting position to feed your patient on equal ground so they don't feel rushed. And we're going to offer a drink before we feed them and every 2 to 3 bites. This is why they're instructed to take 4. Because if you offer a drink before and you offer a drink every 2 or 3 bites, by the time we get to 4, if you haven't offered a drink, you're out of compliance. So after bite 4, your patient's going to say, I'm done, I'm finished, I don't want any more, whatever they're going to say. Make sure you've offered them a drink before that point. And that's because everybody has different eating preferences. We don't think about this. We do not think about this. We think everybody eats like we do. I mean, what other way is there to eat, right? But some people will eat all of one thing on their plate before they move to the next. And then they eat all of that before they move to the next. Some people graze, bite here, bite there, right? Kind of all over the place. Some people do not like their foods to touch at all. And some people like their corn and mashed potatoes mixed, right? Everybody's different. Same thing with drinking. Everybody is different. Some people drink before a meal. My aunt was like that. She would drink a whole glass of water before she ate anything. She was a model when she was young, and that's how she trained her tummy to not be hungry. She would drink an entire glass of water, and then when she got to eating, she wouldn't eat much. And that's how she kept her figure throughout her life. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me. Does not work. Some people drink after a meal, right? They eat their whole meal. They don't want to fill up on liquid. They want the good stuff, right? So they'll drink after a meal. Some people like me drink all the way through the meal because I don't have a lot of saliva, which means that I need some sort of liquid to help me with the eating process. Which one is your patient going to be? Yeah, I don't know, right? Could be any of them. So we offer a drink before, we offer a drink during, and we offer the drink after because we don't know which one they are. Have you ever stopped to think that you eat different from other people? Okay. Small bites. Spoon should be less than half full. Small bites. Small bites. And we're going to have a conversation while we feed them. When they say, I'm done, I'm finished, I don't want any more, go away, whatever they say, we are going to encourage them to eat. You need to use 2. I'm going to show you 3. You need to use at least 2. So the first thing I ask is, are you sure you don't want just one more bite? I turn up the charm. It is hard to tell me no when I get charming. It is so hard to tell me no because I'm just so sweet. And you want to make me happy. And you can get a whole lot further with patients by being nice than being mean. So I turn up the charm. Are you sure? For me, come on, I'm sitting down. I'm off my feet for a minute. Take your time. Take another bite, right? I'm going to make it all. If they're doing me a favor, they might eat a little more. Because remember, what they eat today is going to affect tomorrow's energy levels. Right? It's important. So if they say, no, I'm done, I don't want any more. The next thing I'm going to say is, do you want something else? Because maybe this just didn't do it for them. We've all had those days. We get something, we take a bite, and it's like, nope, not it. No, it's not what I wanted. Right? But your patient can't go to the kitchen and whip something else up. They're kind of stuck with whatever you give them. So I ask them, can I get you something else from the kitchen? Maybe a sandwich or something? Was this not it? Right? Give them options. It helps encourage intake. And then the last thing that I do is I tell my patients, if you get hungry later, let me know. We've got some snacks and things on the unit that I can get to you. Again, intake is what I'm focused on here. Okay, I want to encourage intake. What I don't want to say is, thank God, I've got a million other people to feed. Right? We don't want to rush them through this. So use at least 2 of those. Would you like another bite? Would you like something else? And let me know if you get hungry later. Okay, good? Encouragement is important. Then you're going to leave the area around their mouth dry. Where have we heard that before? Mouth care, denture care, feeding. It's all about the mouth. You're leaving that mouth dry. And we're going to have to document. Now, remember, I told you that our care plan called this a snack. So we're going to check off snack. How much did they eat? I'm going to tell you it's going to be 25%. It is 4 half full spoonfuls. Should never be more than 25% for the test. 4 half full spoons. That is not 50%. That is not 75%. That is not 100%. That is barely more than 0. Okay. Now, fluid, how much fluid did they eat? That's going to be based on what they drank. That's going to be based on what they actually drank. They might drain that cup for the test. They might drink all of that water because they're getting ready to test and they're nervous. And do you know what happens to your mouth when you get nervous? It gets dry. So your patient for the test might drink that whole water. And if they drink the whole cup of water, that would be 100%. But they also might be afraid of dribbling water on them because you're the one giving them the cup. So they might say, no, I'm not really thirsty, because they don't want to wear it. So their intake might be 0. Go by whatever happens in the test. Good? Good. All right, so this is, remember, these are the details that matter. We're going to sit when we feed them. We'll offer them a hand wipe and a clothing protector. We're going to offer a drink before, during, and after the meal. We're going to let them lead. We're going to feed slow. Spoon should only be half full, and we're going to have a conversation. Do not use childlike feeding techniques. No planes, trains, or automobiles. Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you, in a clinical setting, there are some patients that I play with. Absolutely. There are some people that I develop a rapport with. And if I can make somebody smile, and that smiling elevates their mood, and the mood elevates their intake, then I'll play around with them and just get them to smile. I use a lot of humor in my nursing, But for the test, that's not the time or place. No childlike feeding techniques. We don't treat patients like children. Okay? They're not children. They're adults. Dignity matters here. All right, so let's talk about that scale that we just looked at, right? So this is called a quarter scale. This is an estimation range. And this is what we use for most meal intakes. And what this means is we're going to document how much they ate using a scale between 0 and 100. And we divide it up into quarters. 0 means they didn't touch anything. They did not eat. 100, clean plate club. They ate it all. Now, the stuff in the middle is an estimation. Best guess. Closest. Make sense? So if they picked at it but didn't eat half, we call that 25%. If they ate about half, we call it 50%. If they ate most of it but not quite all, we'll call it 75. And if they ate it all, we'll call it 100. This is closest, best guess, not scientific. Now, let me explain to you why we use this. This is different than intake and output. We'll talk about that in a minute. This food intake scale is designed for one reason only: trends. So if I have a patient, if I tell you to go get a weight on a patient, and you tell me that they've gained 10 pounds in the last month, I'm going to go back to their documentation form, and I'm going to look at their intake. And if I see their intake is 50%, 25%, 75%, 50%, 50%, 75, 100, 25%, right? There is nothing there that indicates a 10-pound weight gain for me. So that tells me, there's a mismatch here. There's a problem. We're not eating all of our meals and we have a 10-pound weight gain. What is going on with this patient? Okay. Now, if I see 100, 100, 100, 100 plus, 100 plus, 100 plus, that plus is indicating they got snacks. They asked for an extra portion. They're eating. And I get a 10-pound weight gain. Well, I know where the weight gain came from. Weight gain came from food, but wait a minute, 10 pounds in a month is a lot of weight gain. So why are they that hungry? And an increase in appetite is usually one of the first signs of diabetes. So now I have to go check my patient's lab work because we may have a problem brewing here that I figured out because I looked at the trends. Make sense? So this is an estimation. That's what we're trying to get here, is just an estimation. Good? Not scientific. So if you look at this, this is what we started with. We had a sandwich, some broccoli, and some Jell-O. And we go pick up the tray, and this is what we pick up. What would we give this guy credit for? 25, 50, 100, or 75, or 100? How much did he eat? Not what's left. How much did he eat? Okay, probably about 25%, right? Very little of the Jell-O, one stalk of broccoli maybe, and a bite of the sandwich. 20, he picked at it, right? If I go pick up the tray and this is what's left, how much did he eat? About 50%, yeah. If I go pick up the tray and this is what I pick up, how much did he eat? About 75%. And if I go pick up this tray, I'm going to give him credit for 100 because broccoli stalks don't count. Okay, this is close enough to 100 to call. He ate. We're not going to use 90. We're not going to use 92. We're not going to use 87. 75 or 100. Which one is closer? 100. So we're going to use 100. Good? Make sense? Let's try an activity together. Oops. Let's go to, where is it? Let's go to page 106 in your book. All right, here's our, in the first column here, here's what we started with. Number one, we pick up that plate. How much are we going to give him credit for? 100%. That is a clean plate. Looks like they licked the plate clean, actually. All right, number two, how much we're going to give him credit for? Hey. What do you guys think? Number two. Out of the 2 triangles of toast, there's 1 left. Out of the 2 strips of bacon, there's 1 left. Out of the 2 eggs, there's 1 left. Out of the 2 pieces of melon, there's 1 left. 50. Yeah, that's a true right down the middle split. Number 3, what will we give them credit for? 75. What about number 4? Yeah, they picked at it. You probably could call that 25. You might get away with 0. I mean, they barely picked at it, right? Not enough nutrition to make a big difference here. They did eat 1 bacon, yeah. Yeah. Remember, it's either 0 or 25, though. We can't. Yeah, they just picked at it. Yeah. So that's going to trigger the nurse to try to figure out what's going on with this patient. Are they nauseous? Are they too tired to eat? Something that's not normal, is it? Not normal. So the nurse has to figure out what's going on with them. Got it? Got it? Okay. And you can do this one on your own later, but let's go, let's talk about intake and output, or CCs. You good? Okay. Let's talk about intake and output. So in America, we use ounces. We don't use mLs or cc's. mL, cc, same thing. Jake, can you help her? We don't use mLs, or we don't use the metric system in America. We use ounces. The problem is medicine uses the metric system. So here in America, we have to convert ounces to metric. And the way we do that is 1 ounce equals 30 cc's. Cc's, mLs, same thing. So if you're working with a pre-packaged food item, like that Dr. Pepper can you pick that up and look at the bottom of it? And you'll see how many ounces are in there.
12 ounces.
Okay, and next to that, in parentheses, it probably has mLs. 355. So for that can, we would use what they actually gave us, 355. Okay, if you look at your water bottle, it's 15.9 ounces. How many mLs? 500. So we would use the amount on the actual item. Okay, so if we have a package, that's easy. We just read the package. But most things, we're not going to have a package. A water cup, it's not packaged. A coffee cup, not packaged. So we're going to have to learn to do the conversion ourselves. Every ounce is worth 30 cc's. So if we have 12 ounces, we would multiply 12 by 30 and get 360. Now your can said 355, which is pretty close. Okay, so this is a conversion. And it's going to get us close to the actual number. Okay, so 8 ounces, we would multiply 8 by 30 and get 240. 6 ounces, we would multiply 6 by 30 and get 180. Got it? So let's go back to page 106. Down here, we have an activity. 6 ounces of juice. If we multiply 6 by 30, what does that give us? So we would write 180 right there. Now this carton actually tells us how many mLs. It's 8 ounces of milk. How many mLs are in that carton? 240. So we're going to write 240 there. And then 12 ounces of coffee. That's a big old coffee cup. 12 ounces of coffee. 12 times 30 would be 360. All right. So 6 ounces of juice is 180. 8 ounces of milk is 240. 12 ounces coffee, 360. That's what this patient drank for this shift. At the end of the shift, because this patient is on intake and output, we are going to keep track of everything they drank, write it down, and add it up at the end of the shift. So it's now the end of the shift. We need to add these three up. 180, 240, 360. Can anybody do that math? 180, 240, 360. 780, that is correct. So the total intake for this shift is 780 cc's. You, will have one math question on the state exam. It will either ask you to do the conversion. What is 6 ounces of water? How many mLs are you going to document? Or it's going to be an addition question where they give you multiple numbers of intake and you add them all together. You will have a math question on the state exam. Okay. Now they are moving away from this only because we have moved to electronic medical records and the computer does all the math for you now. But you still need to know how to do it. Now, if you go to page 132, I want to talk to you just a little bit about medical abbreviations. On page 132, we have a list of commonly used medical abbreviations that CNAs should know, but the ones that are highlighted are the ones you need to know because these are the ones you're going to be working with in a clinical setting all the time, okay? If you go about 3/4 of the way down that first column, you'll see NPO, which means nothing by mouth. You must know that one for the test. You probably will have a question that says something like your patient is NPO after midnight. Which of the following is appropriate to offer the patient when they ask for a snack? A, water. B, diet soda. C, fruit juice. D, nothing. Nothing is your answer. They are nothing by mouth. Okay, good. But let's go up to the top here because these get really confusing for students. So I want to demystify this for you really quickly. Understand, most medical abbreviations are not abbreviated English. We are so egocentric here in America. We think everything revolves around us. right? We look at these abbreviations and we think they should be abbreviated English. NPO makes no sense if you try to figure out what words would mean nothing by mouth in English with NPO. That's because it's not English. It's Latin. Nota per ora or nota per os. It's Latin. So that's what NPO means. It's abbreviated Latin. And those Latin words mean nothing by mouth. But if we go up to the top here, we see more Latin. BID. BID. B stands for bi. How many wheels does a bicycle have? 2. That's right. So BID is twice a day. T stands for tri. How many wheels does a tricycle have? 3. So TID is 3 times a day. Q is a shortened version of every, quake, which is every. So QD would be every day. QOD, every other day. QH, every hour. Good? Q stands for every. And then we have the one that's really confusing, QHS. QHS, again, Latin. But it's ora somni, which is how they say bedtime, hour of sleep, how they say bedtime. So QHS is every bedtime. Good? Questions? Flashcards are your friend there. There is, if you look on page 133, there's a whole activity there where it has you try to figure out what the phrase is saying. The phrase is using medical abbreviations, and it helps you kind of use those medical abbreviations to figure out what it's telling you. So that's a really good activity to really put into practice how these medical abbreviations are going to be used in a clinical setting. It'll help you get it a little quicker. Any questions on that? Remember that our documentation page is on 169. When we're talking about intake and output, so right now we talked about this side of the page, our food and fluid intake form, percentage scale. But when you're doing actual computations, 180 mLs, 240 mLs, a total intake of 780 mLs, we don't document that on here. We need a different form. This is an intake and output form. This is where we would document that. And you would document it under intake because we're taking it in. But you're not the only one that monitors intake and output. You monitor oral intake and urine output. But there's more things that go into a human body in a clinical setting. We can have IVs. We can have wound irrigations. We can have blood products and things like that. So you aren't the only one that's tracking intake. And other things can come out of the patient, like wound drainage, emesis or vomit, liquid stool. So you are not the only one documenting output. So please make sure when you're filling this out that if it went in, you're documented under intake. If it came out, it's under output. If you measure urine, patient pees, you measure it, and you write it down in the top of this form under intake, you are legally certifying, hand on the Bible, one in the air, you are legally certifying that this patient drank that many mLs of urine. And those lawyers are not nice. They don't understand mistakes. Lawyers have zero senses of humor. Good? I have a whole lesson on intake and output you can read if you want more information on this on page 107. So now we know all the steps. Let's apply them to this checklist. We're going to follow our care plan. We're going to do our opening. We're going to decide if we need gloves. We may not. And we're going to adhere to our linen rules. We're going to, do our skills-specific steps and then the closing. This care plan is only for this patient, nobody else. Other patients you may feed but not document. Other ones feed themselves. Okay, every care plan is going to be different. Let's take a look at this video, super short video. You'll get to see me feed my son.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. Could I ask you to sit up straight before we get started, please? How are you?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Would you like to eat a snack?
Yes, that'd be lovely.
Okay, I'd be happy to help you with that. Let me go wash my hands, get my supplies, and I'll be right back. Okay, Mr. Jones, I'll give you a hand wipe so you can clean your hands before we feed you. Okay, would you like to take the hand wipe?
Yes, please. Thank you.
And go ahead and clean your hands. Thank you very much. I'll dispose of this in the trash. And would you like a clothing protector?
Yes, please.
I'm going to go get one for you. Okay, Mr. Jones, I'm going to take this clothing protector and put it over your chest. This will just protect your clothing while I feed you. And I'm going to pull up a chair. How are you doing today?
Very good.
Wonderful. Would you like a sip of water?
Yes, please.
Okay. And we have cinnamon applesauce. How does that sound?
Great.
Wonderful. Here we go. We're going to fill the spoon less than half full. And do you enjoy sports?
Yes.
What sport do you like?
Football.
Oh, I do too. Did you watch the big game
I
yesterday?
was so happy my team won.
Oh, it was such a great game. I couldn't believe in that last quarter what happened. Another bite?
Yes, please.
There you go. Would you like a drink?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, my favorite team doesn't win very often. Usually when I'm watching, they're guaranteed to lose.
Usually for me as well.
Would you like another bite?
No, thank you.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay. Can I get you something else from the kitchen?
No, thank you.
Okay, if you get hungry later, please let me know.
I will.
Okay. All right, I'm just going to take this clothing protector off. And we'll clean your face. I'm going to put this in dirty linen. I'm going to dispose of all the disposables. And we'll return the tray to the bedside table. Just going to move this to the side. And are you comfortable?
Yes.
Is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here?
No, thank you.
Would you like a magazine before I go?
No, thank you.
Let me get your call light for you. There's
Thank
your
you.
call light. If you need anything at all, just hit that red button. We'll be happy to come help. I'm going to go wash my hands and document. After washing my hands, I'll document the amount of food the patient ate and the amount of fluid that they drank. Once I'm done documenting, I'm going to go wash my hands one final time. After washing my hands, I'll think about the steps of my skill, make any corrections, and tell the evaluator my skill is done. All right. Any questions? I would want to get that skill. Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. I would want that skill. Just a FYI, the skill that you dread the most is usually the one you get. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how it works, but the one you dread the most is usually the one you get. So start dreading this or range of motion. All right, page 152 is our last skill for today. And then you'll have some practice time. Oops. Remember, I told you you'll have around 30 minutes of practice time today and then about an hour on Monday. All right, so if you're looking down the side here, you can see all of the principles involved. They're all spelled out for us here. We know all of them. Down here is your skill or your test-specific information. Somebody with your level of experience should be able to do this skill in 17 minutes or less. Guys, remember, bed bath, that was 19 minutes. This is just slightly shorter than that, 17 minutes. Way more time than you need. This is going to be done on a mannequin. That mannequin will start out the skill in a bed. So when you're practicing this skill, make sure you're setting it up correctly with a mannequin laying in bed. Okay? Page 153 tells us our care plan at the top, step-by-step instructions, supplies at the bottom. If you do not have flashcards for supplies yet, now is the time to make them. Here's our care plan. The female patient has been incontinent of urine and needs perineal care. The pad under the resident is wet, but the hospital gown and bedding is dry. That's a miracle. Doesn't happen like that. Usually, if the patient is wet, so is the gown. Okay, but we're going to take the gift they give us for the test. This is a gift. All we have to do is clean the patient and change the pads. That's a nice gift. Okay, all of these principles we know. We know to follow the care plan. We know how to do the opening. We know to wear gloves because we're in personal skin area. We know to use a barrier because we have supplies. Patients uncovered and undressed, so we need a privacy blanket. Linen rules apply. Patient must be in the middle of the bed. Whatever we wash, we rinse. Whatever we rinse, we dry. We're going to clean the basin the way we always do, and we're going to do the closing. Nothing new to teach you here, except for our skill-specific steps. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about incontinence, though. Before I teach you how to do this skill, we have to know what the skill is all about and why we're doing it. So this is a normal functioning urinary system. We have two kidneys. Those kidneys filter blood, produce urine 24 hours a day. Never stops. As the blood is filtered from the kidneys, it pulls out impurities and excess fluid and creates urine. That urine drips down tubes called ureters into the bladder. Drip, 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 drip. Those drips accumulate in the bladder, and a little valve down here is closed, holding the urine in the bladder. Your bladder gets full, little bell rings in your brain, says, hey, go find us a bathroom. You go find a bathroom. You open that valve, all of that urine comes out. You're done, you close that valve, and now we're ready to go for another couple hours. That is a normally functioning urinary system. When a patient is incontinent, that still works the same. We still have kidneys that filter blood 24 hours a day, produce urine, drip, 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 drip. Those drips go down into the bladder. The problem is this valve. The valve doesn't hold the urine in the bladder, so all of those drips come out freely. Okay? So when you have an incontinent patient, they're going to be wet all the time. Remember, those drips are coming straight through the body and out. So drip, 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 drip. If you have a patient who is dry, 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 really, really wet, that is not an incontinent patient. That valve worked. What you have are incompetent staff members that aren't getting that patient up out of bed and to the bathroom and making them wet themselves, which is a dignity issue, and you should be ashamed of yourself for that. Okay. So when I have a CNA, CNAs have to go around and do checks and changes every 2 hours around the clock. So we're changing this patient and cleaning them every 2 hours around the clock. So if I have a CNA comes and tells me I didn't have to change her, she was dry. Really? If I go in and check right now, that patient's going to be dry? Oh, let me go check. Because incontinent patients are never dry. If they are, that's a problem. That means that something is happening up here. Got it? So incontinent patients must be changed and cleaned every 2 hours around the clock. Your kidneys don't go to sleep when you do. Every 2 hours around the clock. Okay, good. All right, the problem is that adult urine is not like baby urine. We can put a diaper on a baby, put him in a crib, let him sleep 8 hours, get him up the next morning and go to change that diaper, and they'll still have skin on their little tushes because the acidity in our urine is based on what we eat and drink. Babies don't eat a lot of acid. They are on breast milk or formula, very mild. They eat rice cereal and strained peaches, very mild, right? Not a lot of acid. Adults, our whole diet is filled with acid because it makes stuff taste good. Okay, that Coke, tons of acid. Okay, not the fun kind of acid. That's not what I'm talking about here, okay? So we need to understand that that acid that's coming through, whether it's citric acid, carbonic acid, I mean, there's lots of different acids in like tomatoes and different foods. That acid is going to be excreted through the urine. So that means our adult patients are laying in wet acid. What does acid do to the skin? Burns it. So if you leave this patient in bed on a wet pad for 8 hours, that acid in the urine is going to eat into the skin, and we're going to end up with rashes and wounds and sores and all kinds of really bad things. So our incontinent patients need to be cleaned and changed every 2 hours to get that skin clean, get the acid cleaned off the skin. Good. Let's talk about these guys. They're not called diapers with adults. We do not refer to anything used on a baby by a baby name when it comes to adults. These are called adult briefs. You can also hear them referred to as depends, but we don't call them diapers. But the problem is that they hold in body heat, they trap urine against the skin, and they block out light, which makes it warm, dark, and moist. This is the ideal breeding environment for pathogens. Absolutely. Not the best option. Now, when our patient is out of bed, in activities, going to appointments, eating meals, this is appropriate because it's a dignity issue. Nobody wants to wet themselves in public. Appropriate. Still have to clean them every 2 hours around the clock. Still have to change them. But when they're in bed, or if they have skin issues, this is not the best option. We can put this patient open to air, which means when they're in bed, no adult brief. We put a pad under them. Like this. We have a pad under them. As that urine comes out, it spreads along the pad. It encounters light. It's not held up against the body, right? So we've reduced our warm, dark, moist environment, and it reduces the potential for skin infections or sores or rashes. So open to air is preferred when your patient is in bed, but some patients aren't comfortable with this, and that's okay. We're going to follow our care plan for each individual patient. Good? Make sense? Anybody have a baby or have ever had a baby at home? Babies get really bad diaper rashes sometimes. Do you know what the pediatrician will tell you to do if we have a hard time getting that infection to clear up? They'll tell you to leave the baby open to air. Same thing here. Okay. Good? Make sense? All right. Well, let's think about that pad for a second. That urine, when it comes out of the body, okay, urine is made up here in our furnace area. That urine, when it comes out of the body, is warm, about 100, 101 degrees. Remember, our body's 98.6. Urine's a little bit warmer than that, so about 100, 101 degrees. Now, that 101 degree urine hits 75 degree air, and it's going to cool down pretty quick because room temperature always wins, right? You guys remember that? So we have a patient laying on a cold, wet pad. Are they comfortable? What's the first thing they want done? Yeah, change that pad. That's first thing we're going to do here. We're going to change that pad to make them comfortable. But now we got a wet butt on a clean pad. So when we're done cleaning them, completely done, we've cleaned the front, we turn them over, we cleaned the back, we're going to change that pad again. So at the end of the skill, we have a clean body on a clean pad ready to go for another 2 hours. Good? You guys remember this? We learned last class, the leaves method. You guys remember that? We use leaves method when we're washing a wet body opening. Yeah, well, this is definitely a wet body opening. So we're going to take that washcloth, hold it as a diamond with the free corners at the top, put it in our dominant hand, tuck the 2 side corners in, and we're going to use this to clean. 1 leaf per stroke. Remember that? Okay. So we're going to change our chucks. And the way we do this is clean rolls toward me, dirty rolls away. You already know how to do this. It's a smaller version of the sheet. Clean rolls toward me, dirty rolls away. Got it? See how we're building on what we've learned? Then we're going to wash. I'll wring this washcloth out really quick or really well. I'm going to soap all 5 corners. So I soap, 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 soap. Now I'm ready to wash. I'm going to wash down the inside middle from the top to the bottom, never, ever, ever going back up. Top to bottom, move away, fold that leaf over. Then I'm going to go on the outside, top to bottom. So top to bottom, never back up. Fold that over. We're going to clean the other outside, top to bottom. Fold that over. This, where the leg and the groin meet, this crease, we're going to go down the crease. Again, never back up. Fold that over, and then this crease. Good? Questions? This will go on our barrier, not back in the basin. Then whatever we wash, we rinse. So I get another washcloth, wring it out really well, and I'm going to rinse the exact same way. We don't change anything when we rinse. We rinse the exact same way. So down the middle, fold it. Down the outside, fold it. The other outside, fold it. Skin fold, fold it, skin fold. Set this on the barrier. And then we're going to dry top to bottom, never back up, and then move away. Good? Easy. The big important part here is never go back up. Okay. Questions?
Do we dry in the same way? Or?
Just pat dry, top to bottom. Yeah. You don't want to dry down the inside middle because that lack of moisture can actually be very irritating to the skin. So we're just patting dry on the outside, top to bottom. That's it. That's it. Okay. So middle, side, side, skin fold, always down, never back up. Now we have to wash their backside. So we got to get them in the middle of the bed on their side. So we scoot them toward us first, roll them away from us. So they're in the middle of the bed. So we're going to use that scoot and roll again. And then once we get them on their side, we're going to wash their backside. I'm going to take a washcloth, wring it out really, really well. I'm going to soap 4 corners. 1, 2, 3, 4. And on their backside, I'm going to go from their anal opening up toward their head. So right up the center crease. I'm going to fold that over. I'm going to wash one cheek. Fold that over. I'm going to wash the other cheek. Fold that over. And then once more, right up that center crease again, because it's kind of like a riverbed. All the urine's going to run right up that crease. So we're going to get it twice. I'll set this aside on my barrier. I'm going to get washcloth number 4, wring it out really, really well, and I'm going to rinse the same way I washed. From the anal opening up the center crease, fold it over, one cheek, fold it over, the other cheek, fold it over, up the center crease. And then I'm going to set it on my barrier, not in the water, and I'm going to dry from the bottom toward the top. Pat dry. Now we've got our front washed, we've got our back washed. So we want to change that pad out one more time so we have a clean pad for the next 2 hours. And then in 2 hours, we're going to come back and do it all over again. Good? Now remember I said that the problem here, the part that's broken, is the valve. You guys remember that? The valve that holds that bladder closed? That valve is a muscle. Now, if I don't exercise at all, my biceps are going to get really flab. I mean, look at this. They're pretty flabby, right? Because I don't do a lot of exercise. Now, if I went to the gym and I started exercising my arms, they would get stronger. They would get more defined. They would work better, right? Because I'm exercising them. Everybody with me? That valve is a muscle. So if we start exercising that muscle, we can gain control of it again. This is called a bowel and bladder retraining program. And it requires us to get our patient to the bathroom, on the toilet, every 2 hours around the clock, whether they feel like they have to go or not. Yeah, every 2 hours around the clock. Get them to the bathroom, sit them down. And just that act of sitting will open that valve and then close it again. And then we get them back to bed. First couple times, you're probably not going to get anything. But after some time, you'll actually notice that they're going to go a little bit. And we keep doing that after about 5 to 7 days. We're probably going to get better control of that bladder, reduce the amount of skin problems and infections, reignite their dignity, and give them an overall much better feeling. But it requires all staff members to do this every 2 hours around the clock. Because if you have one staff that just doesn't do it, it means we got to get the patient up at 2 in the morning and get them to the bathroom. And if night shift says, yeah, I ain't doing that, well, it's not going to be all that effective. Okay, makes sense? It's like me skipping leg day over and over and over and over, right? It's not going to be very effective, is it? Okay. Unfortunately, you can't just walk into a gym and get fit. If you could, man, I'd be there. You got to actually put in the work. And that's what we do when we do bowel and bladder retraining. We have to put in the work. Good? Questions? This is not a hard skill. You already know everything you need to know. You know the leaves method. You know clean rolls toward me, dirty rolls away. You know whatever you wash, you rinse. Whatever you rinse, you dry. You know all this. There's nothing new in this skill other than we got to do it every 2 hours around the clock. Good. It is a big skill, though. There's a lot of principles at play here. And there's a lot of checkpoints as well. But they're all things we already know. We know to follow we know that every skill starts with the opening and every opening starts with a knock. We know that we're in personal area and body fluids, so we need to wear some gloves. Our patient, we need some linens, so linen rules are going to apply. We need a barrier to put those linens. We know to use a privacy blanket because our patient's definitely going to be uncovered and undressed here. Don't throw anything on the floor. We know our patient must be in the middle of the bed after the roll. And we know all of our washing rules. Whatever we wash, we rinse. Whatever we rinse, we dry. Check the water. Let them check the water. And we're going to clean the basin the way we clean all basins, right? These steps we just learned they're not hard at all. And then we know to finish it up with a closing. This is not a hard skill. And if you notice, there aren't very many steps that are skill specific. It's a long skill, but it's not a hard one. Where you're going to have problems with this is your own emotional reaction to what you're washing. You know, most people are like, yeah, I really don't want to be there, right? But I want you to think about it from the patient's point of view for a second. Trust me, if your patient could clean themselves up, you would not be there. People do not want other people to clean themselves up. Okay? So if your patient can't do this and have to rely on you to do it, you got to do a good job. And you have to do it in a way to make your patient a little more comfortable. So you don't want to walk in all timid, like, I got to, clean, right? Your patient will have zero confidence in you. But if you walk in and you make it just part of your daily activities, all right, Miss Jones, you got to get cleaned up now. Going to clean you can call it the peri area. You can call it the personal area. You can call it below the belt. Keep it professional, though. You don't want to say you're vajayjay or anything like that, okay? You want to keep it professional. But you want to do this with a certain level of confidence so that you're putting your patient at ease. They don't want you there any more than you want to be there. But we're both here, so let's make the best of it. Okay, good. Again, bowel and bladder retraining, we can solve this problem. Give the patient a little more dignity. This care plan is only for this patient, not these guys. They have different care plans. Good? All right, let's go ahead and watch this video. When we're done with the video, don't go anywhere because Jake's going to pass out your review sheets while the video is playing. And I've got a couple things I want to tell you about, and then I'll sign off of online and I'll open it up for practice for you, okay? Hello, Miss Jones. My name is Patty. I'm your CNA today. How are you? Wonderful. I need to perform Peri-Care. Is that okay? I'm going to close your curtain, wash my hands, get my supplies. I'll be right back. After washing my hands, I'll get my clean supplies. We're going to place the supplies on an overbed table, and we'll start with a barrier on the table, making sure that the absorbent side is facing up to catch any water spills. This gives us a clean place to put our clean supplies. For this skill, we're going to need 2 chucks. We'll need a towel, 4 washcloths, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a privacy blanket. We'll go to the patient area. And now I'm going to get a basin and soap. We'll place this on the overbed table. And I need a set of gloves. Now I'll go fill the basin. Miss Jones, I'm going to go get some water. I'll be right back. To fill the basin, I'm going to use a paper towel to turn the faucet on because my hands are clean. I'll use my wrist to feel the water temperature. It should feel warm, not hot, not cold, just warm. And we'll fill the basin about 1/4 of the way full. Mrs. Jones, would you like to check the water temperature? It's good? Wonderful. I'm going to set this on the barrier. And this is a privacy blanket. This is going to keep you warm and protect your privacy while we do this skill. I'm just going to stretch it out over your sheet. And then I'll pull the sheet down underneath the privacy blanket. And we're going to pull the sheet down to about your knees. Now, I'm going to prepare my chucks. I'll unfold them, hold them up lengthwise, and I'm going to roll it toward me. Clean rolls toward me. All the way to the end. I'll put this on the barrier and do the same with the second. I'm going to open it up, hold it up lengthwise with the absorbent side facing me, and roll it all the way to the end. Clean rolls toward me. We'll set that on the barrier as well. Now I can put my gloves on. I'm going to place the washcloth in the basin to warm. I'll take one of the chucks that's rolled. I'm going to lay it up next to the patient under the soiled chucks. And Miss Jones, if I can have you scoot toward me, please. And we're going to roll up on your right side so I can change the chucks under you. I'll help you roll. Okay, now that you're on your side, I'm going to take the soiled chucks and roll it in. Clean rolls toward me, dirty rolls away. I want to roll it so that the absorbent side is on the inside and the waterproof side is facing up. I'm only going to touch the waterproof side, and I'm going to tuck it underneath the patient's hip. I'll unroll the clean chucks and tuck it underneath the patient's bottom area, under the dirty. Okay, Miss Jones, come on back. Thank you. And if you can scoot to the middle of the bed. Thank you. I'm going to go around to the other side. Go ahead and scoot toward me. Thank you. And roll up on your left side. 1, 2, 3. And I will remove that chucks, the soiled one, and smooth out the clean. We'll fold this up and we're going to throw this directly into the trash can. Okay, Ms. Jones, can you scoot back to the center of the bed, please? Thank you. I'm going to expose you now. I'll make this as brief as possible. Please let me know if you're uncomfortable in any way. I'm going to roll the gown inside the privacy blanket, and this will expose the peri area. And then I'm going to use a towel over the upper thighs to keep all of that area dry. Now we're ready to clean. I'll take the first washcloth, wring it out, and soap 5 corners. We're going to use the leaves method, meaning the free ends are at the top of the diamond shape. I'll spray the first leaf, fold it over, spray the second leaf, fold it over, spray the third leaf, fold it over, spray the fourth leaf, fold it over, and the back. I'll set that aside. Now I'm going to clean the peri area. I'll hold the washcloth in my hand in a diamond shape, tucking in the 2 side corners, making sure I have control over the leaves and they're at the top so that we can minimize cross-contamination. Okay, Ms. Jones, I'm going to start cleaning you now. I have to hold you open just a little bit, but let me know if it gets uncomfortable. So I'll take the heel of my hand at the top of the peri area, retract slightly, and spread her open a little bit. And I'm going to clean right down the inside middle, top to bottom, one direction only. Once I reach the bottom, we'll move away and fold that leaf over. I'm going to clean the outside peri area, top to bottom. Fold that leaf over. The other side, top to bottom, making sure I don't ever move back up. Fold that leaf over. The fourth leaf will go right down that skin fold, the crease between the thigh and the groin. We'll fold that over, and then we'll clean this skin fold, top to bottom, and we'll set that aside. Whatever we wash, we rinse. So I'll wring out my washcloth using that same leaves method, tucking in the two side corners. I'm going to retract the labia and clean top to bottom. Down the center, fold that leaf over. The second leaf will clean the outside of the peri area, top to bottom. And then we're going to fold that leaf over. The third leaf will clean the outside of the peri area on this side, top to bottom. I'll fold that leaf over. The fourth leaf will clean the crease, top to bottom. I'll fold that leaf over, and then we're going to clean this crease, top to bottom. And now we'll dry. Okay, Miss Jones, I'm just going to unroll your privacy blanket, putting the gown back over your legs, and I'm going to ask you to scoot toward me and roll you on your side so I can clean your backside. 1, 2, 3, and we're going to roll up. 1, 2, 3. We'll expose your backside, and the evaluator will hold the mannequin in place for this process. So now I can clean the backside. I'm going to wring the washcloth out. And this time, we're going to soak 4 leaves. So 1, we'll fold that over. 2, fold that over. 3, fold that over. 4, set the soap aside. I'm going to start at the anal opening and move up the crease. Just like that. We'll fold that leaf over. I'm going to clean 1 buttocks. We're going to fold that leaf over, clean the other buttocks. We'll fold that leaf over, and then once more up the crease. We'll set this washcloth aside. Whatever we wash, we rinse. So I'll wring that washcloth out really well. I'm going to hold it in that leaves shape. I'm going to rinse right up the center crease. Fold that leaf over. We'll rinse 1 buttocks. Fold that leaf over. Rinse the other buttocks. Fold that leaf over, and then once more up the center crease. Now we'll dry those areas. So starting at the anal opening, we'll dry all of those areas. We'll set that aside. Now I'm going to take the new chucks, place it under the one that's on the bed, and we're going to roll this one toward the patient and tuck it under her hip, and unroll the new one and tuck it under the soil. Okay, Miss Jones, come on back onto your back, please. Thank you, and then scoot to the middle, please. And I'm going to go around and remove that soiled chucks. Go ahead and scoot toward me. And then we're going to roll up on your side, 1, 2, 3. So I'll remove that soiled chucks and smooth out the new one. Come on back onto your back, and then scoot to the middle of the bed, please. Thank you. This will be thrown away. Okay, Miss Jones, you're covered. You're in the center of the bed. I'm going to go put your dirty linens away and clean the basin. I'll be right back. These items will go in dirty linen hamper. And I'll clean the basin the same way we clean all basins. We're going to dispose of the water into the sink. Rinse the basin. Dispose of the rinsed water into the sink. Set it down. Disinfect it per facility policy. Use a paper towel to pick it up. Paper towel to dry the inside. Throw that away. Paper towel to dry the outside. Throw that away. And 1 for the drawer. On the way, we'll pick up the soap. Place it in the basin. Use the paper towel to open the middle drawer. Pick up the lotion and put it in the basin, and then store the basin in the drawer. We'll close it with a paper towel and then throw those paper towels away. We'll dispose of the barrier that's on the table, and then remove my gloves. Okay, Ms. Jones, I'm going to pull your privacy blanket up and put your sheet back in place. We'll make sure that the patient is covered and that we roll the privacy blanket up in a ball as we remove it from the patient. I want to adjust the sheet for neatness and appearance. And I'm going to go place this in dirty linen. Okay, Ms. Jones, are you comfortable? Is there anything else I can get for you while I'm here? Would you like a magazine? No? Okay, your environment is clean. Here's your call light. If you need anything at all, just press that red button and somebody will be happy to help you. Your bed is in the low position. I'm going to open your privacy curtain and go wash my hands. We'll return this table to storage before we go, leaving our area clean. After washing my hands, I'll review the care plan, make any corrections, and tell the evaluator my skill is done. All right, any questions? Go ahead.
I have two.
Okay.
So the first one is because you're wearing the gloves, but obviously you're cleaning with the soap and then
Rinse.
you rinse. And then technically you go and then you wash the back, but you're touching the water. Wouldn't that count as like contaminating in a way because you have like on your gloves?
Okay, so it's not a perfect situation. If it were perfect, we would get the patient in a shower,
Right.
right? So this is the equivalent to taking a bath.
Okay.
When you take a bath, your whole body is in that water,
Mhm.
and you're splashing that water all over you.
Yeah, good point. And then like, because I remember you talked about like, with the basin, like whether it goes in the sink or into the toilet. Since you're also dealing with like the genitals and urinal and all that stuff, wouldn't that normally go like in the toilet?
You can put it in the toilet if you want, but it's just bathing water.
Okay.
It's just bathing water. So there's no body fluids in it.
Mhm.
Like if it has urine or feces in it, then certainly I would put it in the toilet. But there's no urine or feces in the water. Okay. Any other questions? Good. You're never going to be able to get, when you're working with patients in bed, you are never going to be able to get totally clean or totally dirty transition to totally clean without something in the middle, right? So that's where showers come in, right? You go into a shower dirty, you come out clean, right? Everything is washed off in the shower. The problem is that we don't have that capability when our patient is in bed. So we understand that there's a crossover point. We're just trying to minimize as much transfer as possible. Okay, good question. Any others? We have 3 more skills to go on Monday. Monday is all about toileting, basically. We're going to learn bedpan. We're going to learn catheter care, which is a variation of Peri-Care. It's Peri-Care with an extra step. And we're going to learn how to empty a urinary drainage bag. So everything on Monday is all about toileting. But a lot of this you already know. Again, we're not learning a lot of new stuff. We're going to rehash what we've already learned, put them in different orders to create skills. You will have a little bit more time on Monday to practice, probably a little more than an hour and maybe an hour and a half, even depending on how quickly we get through the material. Okay. So lots of practice time coming up as well. And then you'll have the week after graduation to come in and practice too. We'll go ahead and sign off of online. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Remember, we do have the practice kits available. They have the basins, they have the chucks, they have gloves, gait belt, bedpan, food tray, emesis basin, all the small stuff, everything you need to practice, along with a privacy blanket for you to be able to practice these skills at home. Homework over the weekend, you've got chapters 8 and 9. 8 is on nutrition. It can be a little bit of a dense chapter. It's a short chapter, but you might want to make some flashcards for the different diets because we are what we eat. And if your patient is on a specific diet and you don't honor that, they can have long-term health consequences because of it. So understand that diets are prescribed. And chapter 9 is on rehabilitation. It's an easy chapter. Just focus on patient positions in that chapter. Supine, prone, Fowler's, lateral, those types of things. You will get a wrap up after class email today, and Jake already passed out your review sheet. So thank you guys so much for joining us. We will see you on Monday for the last week. 2 classes left. We're getting there. And then Tuesday is the game show as well. Until next time, happy caregiving. Bye.